Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. I hope you're having a fantabulous day. And we are going to get going, I think, here in just a few moments. New time for a book club, followed after that by Snoopin and Poopin, the SVU update. And now we have everything done, and I will go ahead and look at what time it is where, because I'm really going to be confused. I'm sure that it's Thursday, January 22nd in some places in the world, but not everywhere in the world. So we're going to take a look and see what time it is where. Oh boy. All right. It is currently 1 a.m. in Cockbridge, UK. Cockbridge, UK, 1:01 a.m. Well, that usually sets off the tone for what we're going to pick here. It's 2:01 a.m. in Dick, Germany, because that's what I say. In let me try to pronounce it because I tried last night. Pupke, Ukraine. It is 3:01 a.m. and I'm sure that I will be criticized on that
I'm
pronunciation.
so proud. Are you? No, not at all. That was beautiful.
Okay, she's beaming with pride. In Cockburn, Australia, it is 9:01 a.m. there in the workers' paradise. And on Takeshita Street in Tokyo, Japan, it is 10:02 a.m. And in Cockwash Creek, Australia, 11:32 a.m., half an hour off those people. Stilly buggers. And in Peculiar Knob, no, wait, I didn't say that right. That's wrong, sorry. In Sausage Gully, it is 12:02 p.m. Then we're going to wander over into a different area of the world, and let's say, come by chance in Newfoundland and Labrador. It is 9:32 p.m. Then we're going to have to go with Goochville, Virginia. It is 8:02 p.m. And then we're going to go with Gayville, South Dakota, where it is 7:02 p.m. And in Dickweald, Colorado, it is 6:02 p.m. And we're going to drift here a little bit for these last two because, well, just prerogative. At the Market Theater Gumwall in Seattle, Washington, it is 5:03 p.m. I don't think I've had the opportunity to talk about the Gumwall at this time of day, so I'll do that in a moment. And then in Chickaloon, Alaska, it is 4:03 p.m. Alaska, where Sarah Palin can see Russia from her house. Now, just really quick to let you all know that at the Market Theater in Seattle, Washington, it is a huge tourist attraction. There is a wall where you can go and place your used gum. So there's a huge, huge freaking wall of just used gum. It's one of the most bacterial infested, disgusting places you will ever see, but people still continue to go and treat and have their and stick their gum on the wall and take a picture and move on with life. But it's, yeah, useless tourist attraction, but people evidently like it. So hi Adam, hi Robin.
Wait, where is this, Prince?
In Seattle.
Oh gosh. Okay. Well, Seattle's a little bit crazy, in the best possible sense of the word. But
Yeah,
anyway,
yeah.
Sanctuary city, obviously.
right,
Out of
exactly.
control. We got to bring in the paramilitary,
Yeah,
Gestapo.
bring in the
I mean,
National Guard to take care of that gum. I absolutely. So Adam, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm in the Rocky Mountains with my friend, working my butt off. And I had to change book club. And thanks for joining us today, people. And sorry for the reschedule. I am the
Yeah.
culprit.
Yes, it's all Adam's fault. We'll be doing this for about next 2 months or so? Is that Adam? How long do we think we're talking about?
We will see. It's
We
a
will
big
see.
project.
Okay, good. Okay,
We're going
exactly.
fast.
Okay, well we want to keep our Adam gainfully employed, so this is the sacrifice we make. Oh, anyway, boy, it's been, we're only doing 2 hours tonight, and we actually have another show coming on after us, so we can't go over particularly. So, but I think we need to give Adam, we need at least a half hour for one of your wonderful rants. And then we can go to the book. So what have you been thinking about?
Nazis, World War II, wondering if I'm in Poland right now. Here's Lexecon. I'm sure she feels the same way. Yeah. But then he tacoed on Greenland today, which is just
Yeah.
I'm fucking sick and tired of the emotional fucking roller coaster that this, and I know, and I've said on this space before, don't listen to what he says. It's all distraction and blah, blah, blah. And yeah, and here he tacoed again, and he took us all for fools again, and who knows what it all means, probably
Yeah,
nothing. And
exactly.
besides destroying the world order and helping the Kremlin by destroying your country from the inside, I'm sorry to say.
But also, one of the things that we'll go to Princeton, then I want to rant on a little bit about his basic unhingedness. It's really where I don't want to spend a lot of time on Trump. I do try to stay off of this guy completely, but we can devote a couple of minutes to what's been going on in Davos. Um, it's really odd. Anyway, over to you, Heather.
No, I just was wondering, and I thought about this earlier today, and we may start tracking it because, this seems to go in cycles. Has anyone, timed this to see if it's like a menstruation that he does this kind of thing on such
That's
a
a
regular
really good.
basis?
That's a really good thought.
It was just, one of those things that occurred to me. It's like a woman having PMS or something. Sorry, I don't want to. Yeah, boy, I probably
No,
just
no, no.
really,
It's it's
I
fine.
just really
Men,
screwed
men
myself
for
with
sure.
this.
Men for sure do that too. What was it? Our
Yeah.
Stunker called it man pause or something.
There was this
Yeah.
show in the 90s, and I think it was like Sliders or something, where they would go into these alternate universes and try and fix things. And they
Yeah,
went
that
into
was a
one,
great show.
where it was a matriarchy instead of a patriarchy. And he gets there and he has no idea what's going on, like usual at the beginning of the show. But she's just like, "Oh, as a man, you can't run anything. We all know that you guys have your weekly cycle." And it's and it's true, because I get grouchy about once a week, and it's on Sundays, and that's why book club is so healthy for me. Fetching.
Oh, good. I'm glad we serve a purpose. But yeah, Sliders. That is a great show. I like everything else in American popular culture, or that may have even been Canadian. I'm not sure, but whatever. I discovered it after it had already gone off the air. I discovered all the stuff. I watched Seinfeld first for about 15 years ago, but Sliders is a great program.
You
Anyway,
live there.
yeah, no, that's true. Yeah, yeah. It's funny too. I was talking with
I
somebody.
guess if
I
you
won't
watched
say.
all the shows about New York, you wouldn't have time to do anything else, because it's the center of the universe.
Well, this is true. Yeah, and I've got enough New York without without watching it. I mean, I watch Downton Abbey. I like to get out of New York when I can. Anyway, but let's go. Let's see who was next. Lexicon and James.
Oh, hi guys. Yeah, kvetching half hour. It's been compressed. Well, I like, as many people have pointed out, that Mark Carney used the word rupture, and with this, like taco, he got forced to tackle, because. Like what Carney was saying to me, what that the significance was to say to countries, look, if you don't band together and call these guys, then you don't even survive it, let alone, like he's saying, it's not a matter of appease and survive, like you just going to get destroyed, was sort of the message, I
Yeah,
think.
he said something about if you're not at the table, you're on the
Yeah,
menu.
you're on the
I thought
menu.
that was an incredible speech.
Well, I thought it was good in writing. I don't, the guy's delivery, anyway, he's a banker. Anyway, he's having 4 moments of fame, one a decade. Um, good, and apparently only 3 standing ovations in the UN, the others being Zelensky and Nelson Mandela. So,
Or
he's
Davos.
in in Davos. Yeah. So, but the other thing is, so like you can band together and tackle Trump. You can force it, you can call him. And the same thing with I think it's also a message, as others have pointed out, about Ukraine, a message to Europe. Just get together and do it. Because you don't just survive if you fail to do it with Ukraine. You're gonna be on the menu. Yeah. And like the notion, um Carney is kind of saying hurry up and move, and Carney, as people know if they follow Canada at all, has moved very quickly to diversify, and a lot of this stuff is irreversible, in trade and markets and so on. Um, but the same thing with Ukraine. You got to hurry up and do it. You don't wait around till Ukraine finally ekes out a win. You don't. Well, it's good enough if we finally get Putin to start hurting so bad that he's ready to come to the table. I mean, screw that noise. Like, you band together and you hurt him so bad that he has to leave. He has to go home, go all the way home. And that's like, I have this ongoing thesis that Ukraine is focusing on Crimea, because when it starts falling apart, we're not going to wait for Crimea to be the leftover that Ukraine doesn't get back. Anyway, to me, that was an important thing about Carney's speech, and seeing Trump back down to date, like within virtually minutes of his damn speech. In one conversation with Mark Rutte, figured out that he couldn't do it. And those sorts of things. At any rate, in Ukraine, you got to get your attention back to Ukraine and get those damn missiles there on the railway line, and smash the guy in every way possible, and hijack his, grab his ships and everything. But yeah, I thought that the message was good, both for Trump and for Putin, how countries deal with him.
Yeah, exactly. And also, Stu said there was an interview with him, and I don't remember who else, but I know Navrotsky was there. There were several people, but they were asking, can Europe survive without the United States? Can Europe possibly? And he basically said, yeah, we just basically step up to the plate. We have to have mobilization. We have to we have to have our military together. There's no question that Europe can stand without the United States, and I think that. I think that's a very important message to articulate. It's, Europe has been, and Europe was sort of lulled into, what did someone say? It's one thing to be a happy vassal, but it's another thing to be a serf or something like that. I don't remember. That might have been Carney
Carney
also.
said that you
Was
end
that
up being
Carney? Yeah.
slaves. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. The same thing, because this is the point that we're at now. Anyway, and I want to. Well, let's go to James first. There's one other thing I wanted to laugh about with you, but let's go to James first.
Well, I just wanted to say that Decoding was talking about whether or not Trump is he really crazy or is he putting on an act? And I realized that he was acting a lot like he did when he was in a courtroom. He was, he seemed very ill. He was kind of crazy then. And it's very much struck me that this is so much like the character in Servant of the People, who acted like he was sick and crazy and did everything. And Dakota had no idea about this show, but he agreed that it fit that pattern. So Wendy and Lexecon and others had, I think, a really kind of funny moment there. But he did agree that, yeah, maybe he would be brass enough to, just go ahead and do what they did in Servant of the People, and I can see that. But this turnaround, it is stunning. It's like, oh no, we never would have attacked. Oh no, we never would have attacked. It's like bullshit. I think that they watched Malcolm Nance's 36-minute movie on this, what the consequences are to the U.S., or maybe Mark Rutte showed it to him. It's, by the way, if you haven't seen it, so worth watching. Wonderful, how good a speaker he is. He laid it out. It would devastate the United States. And sanctions, criminal charges, everything. It'd be horrible. So yeah, they turned around on a dime.
Yeah, well, I mean, what we're establishing for the 5 millionth time is the way you deal with a bully is by standing up to them, and that's what I mean. I saw it was a very, really iconic moment when Trump arrived in Davos. There's that red carpet out for him. There was not a single person there to meet him. He walked by himself from the helicopter where he was going, and that was, that really.
Ooh, I
I'm
missed
hoping it.
that.
Oh
Oh,
yeah, yeah.
delicious.
Yeah, exactly.
More
Yeah.
Schadenfreude,
And as
please.
somebody pointed out, he wasn't even able to walk in a straight line. He was like meandering. Oh, it's just a mess. But the one thing I just wanted to have one little laugh, and then I do want to get to actually some serious news. But my favorite moment in the entire meeting in Davos was when Trump gets up there and says that if it wasn't for the United States, you all would be speaking German to a bunch of Germans speaking Swiss. It was hysterical. So I said, putting the U in ugly American, nobody, you have to give him credit. Nobody does ugly American as well as Donald Trump.
I
There
mean,
is
yeah,
that.
he even before he was the president, he was already the archetype of that. Like it's what most of us thought of when you thought of like conniving, slimy billionaire from the States, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's the impression I got from The Apprentice and only watching 5 minutes of it and then puking in my own mouth. But it was a hit show for other folks somehow.
Yeah, I think I saw about the same amount of it too, and that was it was enough. Boy. Okay, listen, I just want to be. We're already 15 minutes into this, and we really have to. If we're going to get to the book at all, we have to keep on going. I just wanted to mention some serious news. One of which it looks like I don't know how they do it, but it looks like the energy workers in Kyiv have again restored power, at least to all critical infrastructure. There are certainly people in apartments, in very very bad conditions. Something I just read today, which didn't occur to me, along with everything else, and Dryfly was talking about this last night. The how to handle being in cold conditions with venting the air so you don't get buildup of moisture and all this kind of stuff. But it never occurred to me that when the water stops working in these high rises, so do the toilets. And there's this whole there. They've been handing out advice about kitty litter and plastic bags and all sorts of horrible things. This is the kind of thing. This is what Russia has done to the capital of the largest city in Europe. And I mean, God bless Ukrainians. I'm sure people get depressed and get down, but the way that Ukrainians are hanging together in all of this is absolutely breathtaking. And it should. Well, they'll get through it. And, it's very tough. It's a horrible situation in Kyiv right now, and it's not. It's better in parts of the rest of the country, but it's tough all over. I also read there's an article today that they've treated over 1,000 Ukrainians for frostbite and hypothermia. So this is, it's not just feeling cold. This is really life threatening, and people are trying to help each other. But it's, this is a serious thing. And God bless the Poles. Was it Kazakhstan that I mean, there's so many countries have been sending in boilers and things to try to help with the heating situation, but it's very tough. So we have to always keep that in mind when anything else we're talking about. Is These are real people, real normal Europeans who 4 years ago had lives like all of us, who are now having to suffer through this for the fourth year already. Back to you guys.
They're all still working. I saw an amazing uh, little graph today, and it just showed some of the GDP growth, projected GDP growth of various uh, countries, and Ukraine's was 4% still somehow. And yeah, it made me think of that meme of, I'm going to fucking describe a meme for you guys, but I'm going to do it. And it's Mr. Bean being carried on the shoulder of the Terminator Arnold Schwarzenegger, and he's shooting everybody, and and Mr. Bean is the Ukrainian economy, and Terminator is the UPS for the router that's keeping everything operating during no power
Yeah.
situations.
That's the other thing too. If you see some of the videos people put up of how, of how they just saw about an hour ago, somebody had, you can't take a shower if there's no water pressure, right? This guy had rigged up this pump thing and attached it to one of those shower handles, and he was showing how he's pumping from his bucket. He's pumping water into the shower handle so that his family can have showers. The innovation, I mean, we know, we've seen in the last 4 years the incredible innovation that Ukraine manages to come up with, and even in this situation, the innovations, in terms of how to cope with all of this are pretty amazing. But it's enough already. Ukrainians deserve to be able to go back to just getting through life like all of the rest of us, not having to face this all the time. It's gone on way too long, and as people were saying, it's time for, if maybe not the United States because it's going to do it, but everybody else to step up and get them the weapons that they need, because this would have been over already if Ukraine had been supplied with the weapons they needed from the beginning, and it's about time to get it done.
And it's just cruelty on the Kremlin gremlins part at this point, because at this point, like, maybe somewhere in their terrible orc minds, they thought that this bombing campaigns and destroying heat and water infrastructure and electricity infrastructure would break the Ukrainians, but that ship has sailed. It hasn't, and it won't, and it rarely does to any population. So at this point, it's just desperation and cruelty, like terrorism for terrorism's sake, without even an objective besides terror itself.
Yeah, well, and this whole war, the relation between Russians and Ukrainians for centuries has been based on irrational hatred, and this is just more of the same. Yeah, it's there. If you look at what's going on the front line, the Russians are not doing so well. They have some advances that they have some, they have had to retreat in some areas, but the front line is not really moving. But on all of this stuff, the destruction they're raining down on the rest of the country is of no strategic significance. It's, as you're saying, it's just cruelty. It's just coming out of this hatred, this Ruski mir, that anybody, if this other so-called brotherly nation is not willing to accept being part of the Russian world, they're going to destroy them, and there's no operational significance to it. It's just, as you're saying, it's just straight up cruelty.
Sorry, buddy. I saw the big boss man in the audience pop up, and then I was like, "Oh my god, the nest is empty!" So get one of these other clowns to talk, because I'm.
Oh my gosh, yes. Okay, yeah. You better get to it before. Yeah. Yeah, actually, let me mention to you guys, Book Club has got a reputation of being incredibly generous with our fundraisers. I mean, really, you guys are amazing. War Doggo is the proactive fundraiser. He's very close to making what they had budgeted, what they needed for the expanding the electronic warfare capabilities for our friends in the 18th Slavyansk Brigade of the National Guard. They are expanding their program in order to provide training to other units, other people up and down the front line, so that they will be, they will be safer also. War Doggo has already queued up the next fundraiser, which, and Adam just put it up in the nest, and it's going to be the same diesel heaters that we have provided, and it might have been last year. I remember raising money for him before, but these are trench heaters. They run on diesel. He's gotten an amazing price. I don't know how he does this. War Doggo is really, I think he knows people, and he's good at finding, at finding good prices and getting stuff to the guys on the front lines quickly. So the faster we can finish up with the electronic warfare fundraiser. I think it's about $1,600 for sure, or that we're going to immediately roll over in that same proactive fundraiser to raising money to get these heaters to the guys on the front as quickly as possible. War Dog has found them already. They're ready to go. We just need to get the money together to start sending them. And I was just seeing today, they're having problems on the front line with frostbite and hypothermia and that kind of thing too. It's really, really cold in Ukraine right now, and this is a huge need. So if anybody who's got, a little extra money, maybe it's not extra, maybe you can cut back on something a little bit to help these incredibly brave Ukrainian soldiers on the front line in a very difficult situation in the cold and the damp. These heaters are as life-saving as drones and everything else, really. So anyway, take a look up in the nest. Adam is populating the nest. You see Will, you just show up and Adam goes scurrying off to fill the nest. Anyway,
I know, I'm
so
like hall monitor over here.
that's
In such
exactly
a nice
right.
way, though. I
The
just saw
correct
that
answer
lovely
is
fella.
8 degrees Celsius, by the way.
I don't know about
Well,
that. You got to talk to those guys in my neighborhood who have basketball shorts with long johns at the bus stop when it's minus 35.
Well, I mean, I'm not those freaks, but I mean,
They are
if it's
freaks.
8 degrees and if you say 8 degrees, you're going to be okay. And KD.
yeah, this you have to explain what this is. Not everybody is in our internal chats here. There was somebody posted something about how there are a lot of these days Americans and traveling in Europe are likely to say they're Canadian. So there are several ways to tell whether this person is actually Canadian or not. So back to you guys to explain what those are.
What are the ingredients of poutine? What's the appropriate temperature that you can commence wearing shorts? And what's KD stand for? I got all but the KD, but
Also, I think Adam added on later. What's a toque? And what was
what's a toque?
a toque? Is it toque? I don't
I'd
even know how to
say
say it. A
two
toque.
and
Okay.
double. Like, I don't know this. It was like the Canada hates Trump, some sort of account, and they said these were the questions
Right.
to ask.
Right.
But I personally disagree. I would ask them what kind of hat. What's the name of the hat you wear in the wintertime? And that would be the number one. Because if they say beanie, then there you go. That's a
And also,
secret Yankee.
what is that sport that can't even think of the name of the team. That sport that you all play on the ice with the sticks and everything. What's that
Oh
called?
yeah, ask them what their favorite sport is, and if they say ice hockey instead of hockey, then yeah, secret Yankee.
So this is, as I said, this is the Canadian version of Palanitsa. It's a B word for people. Prince, go ahead.
Correctly finish this.
Okay, yes.
Well done.
Citizenship
Well
passed.
done. Yes.
Okay, what is that?
All right, back to the book club, you hosers.
It's a Second City and SCTV skit from the 80s, and it's Bob and Doug McKenzie. And they were the hosers, and they drink beer and wear toques and talk about hockey. And it was Rick Moranis and another amazing comedian that we all became famous later in Hollywood. The Honey, I Shrunk the Kids guy, before he sold out and became a secret Yankee like you guys. Now he doesn't even know what a toque is. I'm just kidding.
And Dave Thomas and Rick Moranis.
Two geniuses, John Candy, God rest his soul. Many. Catherine O'Hara was on that show. Yeah, it was just like a club of sort. It's like our little SNL up here, but it was related because it was Second City television. Yeah, similar to that.
I thought
Lorne
Second
Michaels,
City was.
Not
I thought
live.
Second City was from Chicago. Jeez.
it was, but he also produced. Lorne Michaels also produced
That
The
was
Kids
it.
in the Hall.
Yeah, and he produced SNL, and he was involved in Second City in Chicago, and then they opened one in Toronto or something. Anyways, yeah.
Okay. So This was the Canadian hour. Okay, we've hit 8:30 here, so at least we've hit the bottom of the hour. Let's put it that way. I
We've
think,
struck the bottom. Time to
yeah,
go.
exactly. We've hit rock bottom, so there's no place to go but up. Which is On Tyranny. Now, James and I were talking about going out of order this week because of things that have happened in the last week. So, James, remind me of what chapter that was we had talked about, because I figured, this the On Tyranny is really it's good for, it's, what do they say, it's good for our illness at the moment, whatever. But I don't remember exactly what chapter we talked
Was it
about,
chapter
James.
4 because of Prime Minister Carney's reference to Václav Havel? That's what I was thinking if we were going to go out of order.
I have no idea. I'm so sorry, Robin. I do not recall the situation. I may have been in a different universe. I don't know.
No, maybe she was getting us mixed up because me and her were chatting about this yesterday. Maybe she thought it was you because it was on Tyranny stuff.
We do look exactly the same.
Yeah, we've got that dog face going on. Anyways,
Honestly,
we
Robin,
both
I
have
don't
profile
know.
pictures of dogs, guys. Give me
Yes,
some love here.
yes, we understand. Robin, your mic. Are you trying to speak to us?
Oh, how did you know?
Silence.
Yeah, exactly. If I'm not talking for 2 seconds, my mic must be off by mistake. Anyway, so yeah, we, as is our wont, we're going to start with On Tyranny by Timothy Snyder. And because Mark Carney spoke about Václav Havel and his well, the story about the grocer hanging the sign in the window, we thought it would be good to read this chapter this week. So, shall I start off, and then you all can somebody can take over from me at some point. Take responsibility for the face of the world. The symbols of today enable the reality of tomorrow. Notice the swastikas and the other signs of hate. Do not look away and do not get used to them. Remove them yourself and set an example for others to do so. Okay, now in his commentary, life is political not because the world cares about how you feel, but because the world reacts to what you do. The minor choices we make are themselves a kind of vote, making it more or less likely that free and fair elections will be held in the future. In the politics of the everyday, our words and gestures or their absence count very much. A few extreme and less extreme examples from the 20th century can show us how. In the Soviet Union under the rule of Joseph Stalin, prosperous farmers were portrayed on propaganda posters as pigs, a dehumanization that in a rural setting clearly suggests slaughter. This was in the early 1930s as the Soviet state tried to master the countryside and extract capital for crash industrialization. The peasants who had more land or livestock than others were the first to lose what they had. A neighbor portrayed as a pig is someone whose land you can take. But those who followed the symbolic logic became victims in their turn. Having turned the poor peasants against the richer, Soviet power then seized everyone's land for the new collective farms. Collectivization, when completed, brought starvation to much of the Soviet peasantry. Millions of people in Soviet Ukraine, Soviet Kazakhstan, and Soviet Russia died horrible and humiliating deaths between 1930 and 1933. Before it was over, Soviet citizens were butchering corpses for human meat. In 1930, yeah, go ahead. Go.
In 1933, as the starvation in the USSR reached its height, the Nazi Party came to power in Germany. In the euphoria of victory, Nazis tried to organize a boycott of Jewish shops. This was not very successful at first, but the practice of marking one firm as Jewish and another as Aryan with paint on the windows or walls did affect the way Germans thought about household economics. A shop marked Jewish had no future. It became an object of covetous plans. As property was marked as ethnic, envy transformed ethics. If shops could be Jewish, what about other companies and properties? The wish that Jews might disappear, perhaps suppressed at first, rose as it was leavened by greed. Thus the Germans who marked shop as Jewish participated in the process by which Jews really did disappear. as did people who simply looked on. Accepting the markings as a natural part of the urban landscape was already a compromise with a murderous future. You might one day be offered the opportunity to display symbols of loyalty. Make sure that such symbols include your fellow citizens rather than exclude them. Even the history of lapel pins is far from innocent. In Nazi Germany in 1933, people wore lapel pins that said yes during the elections and referendum that confirmed the one-party state. In Austria in 1938, people who had not previously been Nazis began to wear swastika pins. What might seem like a gesture of pride can be a source of exclusion. In the Europe of the 1930s and 40s, some people chose to wear swastikas and then others had to wear yellow stars. The late history of communism, when no one believed in the revolution anymore, offers a final lesson about symbols. Even when citizens are demoralized and wish only to be left alone, public markers can still sustain a tyrannical regime. When Czechoslovak communists won election in 1946 and then proceeded to claim full power after a coup in 1948, many Czechoslovak citizens were euphoric. When the dissident thinker Václav Havel wrote The Power of the Powerless 3 decades later, in 1978, he was explaining the continuity of an oppressive regime in whose goals and ideology few people still believed. He offered a parable of a greengrocer who places a sign reading, "Workers of the world unite," in his shop window. It's not that the man...
I can. Or James, you want?
Yep. It is
James,
not. It is not that the man actually endorsed the content of this quotation from the Communist Manifesto. He placed it in the window, the sign in the window, so that he can withdraw into daily life without trouble from the authorities. When everyone else follows the same logic, the public sphere is covered with the signs of loyalty, and resistance becomes unthinkable. As Havel put it, we have seen that the real meaning of the greengrocer's slogan has nothing to do with the text of the slogan, what it actually says. Even so, the real meaning is quite clear and generally comprehensible because the code is so familiar. The greengrocer declares his loyalty in the only way that the regime is capable of bearing. That is, by accepting the prescribed ritual, by accepting appearances as reality, by accepting the given rules of the game, thus making it possible for the game to go on, for it to exist in the first place. And what happens, asks Havel, if no one played the game?
Thank you. That's well, comments. I mean, I think that's almost stands by itself. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, well, Carney used that same parable in his speech to Davos, but it was in an interesting and different way than I think the parable was actually, because it's about keeping a tyrannical regime operating through everyone just pretending that everything is normal and okay, and yes, workers of the world will still unite someday. But he turned it on its head of the world order itself, and I feel like it was a call to action of other democratic leaders to say, this is not normal. We have to stop pretending that this is normal. I'm taking the sign out of the window, the sign that I will appease the orange man and I will appease the Kremlin gremlin in order to have the status quo that we can still pretend is happening, right? So a different angle on the same parable, but yeah, I thought it was great, especially in contrast to the rambling dementia Adderall extravaganza that happened today.
Yeah, no, it was. I think it. I'm hoping this means that we finally have gotten to the point where we all understand that the flattery and the obsequiousness and whatever to any kind of tyrant, and Trump and Putin are in the same the same category there, that it accomplishes nothing. It gives them more impetus to continue with what they're doing. Now that people are standing up, and Carney and others are calling this out openly, I think it's a very positive sign. I hope that it continues, and I hope that I hope it's more than words in the end.
Yep.
I hope that the CEOs of Lockheed Martin and the other major weapons companies are like calling the White House now and being like, "What the fuck, man?" Along with every other industry that has this sort of American monopoly on it. Not necessarily a monopoly, but a dominance, right? Like, so, yeah. And that's what I don't understand is, I guess that's where the taco comes from. He gets calls from industrialists in dark rooms smoking cigars, gets shown that film of the Kennedy assassination from the angle of the grassy knoll, and they're like, "You get it, son?"
That's funny.
All it took was some of his moneyed friends to see. I know what happened to my investments in the last couple of days, and it is nothing compared to what would happen if Europe starts calling in American debt. So yeah, I hope that everybody stays the course, and it stays united. What was it Ben Franklin said, and I'm not going to get it exactly right, but it was something about how we had better all hang together or we'll assuredly hang separately, and that's the idea. I think if everyone stands together against this, he will taco every time.
He did this time. I just wanted to say that everybody has been complaining on Twitter about the things that the administration has done. This is where I see it the most, is online. I don't see it necessarily in the streets, but the streets aren't what they used to be. We've got this, and we've got, Facebook and all these other places where we get together and we complain about stuff. And I appreciate that. And so when Noam used the phrase, one of ours, all of yours, put that on the podium, which is a collective punishment thing that really
Was
is not
this
actually.
not the most prolific week of Nazi references ever from the
Yeah,
White House? It was
well,
insane. It was
yeah.
every day.
Yeah, so I mean that got shouted down. I mean, oh man, I don't know how many times I put it out there on Twitter and other places, but truthfully, Twitter, it does a good job of blocking a lot of this stuff, so it isn't seen, I think, the same way that protests are seen. But they heard it. I think that they heard that, and I think that they've been backpedaling, and I think that's why Trump is also kind of worried about these kind of things, because he's been threatened lately with impeachment, frankly. So, they're sort of on their, what do they say, back foot or whatever. Yeah.
Well, and not to mention the popularity, the polls. I mean, his polls didn't start out high, and they are descending precipitously. That even someone as self-centered as he is, at some point, at least the people around him have got to be starting to notice. And as you're saying, James, the fact that there are Republicans openly talking about impeachment at this point is, that's something new, and that's something that they have to be taken seriously.
God bless Don Bacon.
Oh yeah. I assume at some point he will be given an award by Ukraine and well deserved. God bless him. This is the thing too. I get very cynical. I think all of us do about the idiots in Washington, but there are some good people, and Don Bacon is one of them. And it's good to remember there are people who are fighting on the right side of all of this.
And I'm just so sad for Mike Johnson's family and his recent blindness that has struck in him, and I pray for him and his.
Okay, I missed that reference.
He's blind; he doesn't see anything. He's every time anyone asks him about anything that the Orange Man
right,
did,
yeah,
he's
gotcha.
like, I didn't see that.
Yeah.
Anyways, wow, I'm going to end the
situational
joking
dementia or something. Yeah, no. No, it's like he has senility about certain things and not other things. Yeah. Anyway, okay, guys. So with that thought, we are now going to move back after it's been ages since we actually did book club. Good grief. Anyway, Chernobyl Roulette, War in the Nuclear Disaster Zone by our Serhii Plokhy from Harvard, as we know well. We are in, what is this, chapter 5? No, chapter 6. We're in chapter 6. Where, as you maybe will remember, we're talking about the when last we saw them, the Russians were getting ready to take over the Zaporizhzhia Nuclear Power Plant. I'm going to back up, guys, a little bit to the end of page 4 in the outline, just so that we start at some kind of a logical place, and that is 11:30 p.m. on March 3rd is when the battle for the power plant itself starts. 2 tanks and 10 armed personnel carriers advance along the service road to the station. This time, the Ukrainian guardsmen were ready because they knew what had happened at Chernobyl, and they were not prepared to surrender. The Russians, in total disregard for safety and lives of everybody around them, started open fire in the direction of the administration building and the training facility on the site of the power plant. This was all followed in real time on YouTube because one of the engineers had started live streaming the security camera feed at the beginning of the Russian advance. So, among other people, the IAEA knew exactly what was happening the whole time, so they can't claim to be ignorant. Ihor Murashov, who was the acting plant director, he was watching he was with colleagues of his in the administration building, and they were watching this, and the quote here, and you see this again and again, where Ukrainians somehow assume that the Russians will have some kind of sense that what he said was, "We thought that they would block us, but would have enough sense not to shoot." You can't expect sense out of the Russians. The Russians began to shoot indiscriminately, the sparks flying, hitting power lines, and as Murashov said, the thought that a nuclear catastrophe might take place was there. During all of this, the operators of the plant began the lengthy process of shutting down the remaining reactors, which takes hours. They first started reducing the power level. They made a PA announcement to the attackers saying, "Stop shooting at a dangerous nuclear facility. Stop shooting immediately. You are threatening the security of the whole world," which had no effect. Adam.
Logic doesn't work on those enslaved by lies. The lie they tried to say they captured the plan didn't work as a trick on Orlov or as a lie to their commanders. So they attacked first so they could lie about it later. They weren't really worried about radiation because it's probably a lie. Also, they had to maintain the previous lie, which was the easiest apparent path to not being shot by their overlords for not being able to lie to them or hiding their previous lies. It gets rather confusing, but that's okay because you can just lie your way out of it. This is how orcs work. You got it?
Yep, yeah, in a nutshell. I mean, and we see that again and again. I mean, we see that even, in the UN, and that, Horseface will say things, he'll even say things that are internally contradictory, that both of the things he says can't be true, but they just lie with a straight face. It's really, this is the thought process that they go through, and this is part of the reason that Ukrainians throughout this whole war, even after centuries of experience with Russians, they still somehow expect them to act like rational people at some point, and they are every time they're disappointed.
I think because it comes and goes in waves, right? Because they can be rational most of the time, but when things like the Holodomor or the Great Terror or like this or 2014 Little Green Men happen, it just goes. It becomes apparent again that the truth is not a thing, that logic is not a thing. It's just loyalty and lying to lie.
Yeah, well, as we read in The Road to Unfreedom, that this Nazi ideology that they've bought into, among other things, it considers logic to be an outside idea that's being forced on the pure Russian nation. They really don't. They missed they missed the well, not the industrial revolution. They missed the Enlightenment. They missed they missed
They
the
didn't do much
Reformation.
industrial revolution. They did it by force in
Yeah, well,
5 year
yeah, that's
plans,
true. Yeah,
killing
no, that's
millions
true
of
too.
people.
Yeah,
So
no,
yeah,
that's
that
true.
counts too.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. All right. Anyway, so back to this. So in all of this indiscriminate shooting and everything, they damaged the building of reactor number 1. They hit the power transformer of unit number 6. They hit the spent fuel facility, which is one of the most dangerous areas in the plant, where all of a large area that they had built to hold fuel that had been, removed from the reactors. Um, all that took place at the Chernobyl nuclear plant in our plant does not correspond to any logic. This is Mayor Orlov, mayor of Enerhodar. I cannot imagine what was in the head of the individuals who gave orders to fire on the nuclear station and even to enter the city. According to Ukrainian investigators, the order was given by Major General Alexei Dombrovsky, a senior officer of the Russian Guards, who was this is the Russian Guards were the same people who took over Chernobyl, with Frolenkov and Burakov. So this is the same bunch still. By 2:30 a.m., the plant had been captured, with 3 Ukrainian defenders killed in the process. The battle was over, but certainly not the danger of an accident. And in typical Russian fashion, disregard for human life and basic safety and logic, the Russians had no firefighters with them, but they wouldn't let the Ukrainians in to fight the fire at the training facility until 5 a.m. They had it out by 6:20, but it had been, as he said, a terrifyingly close call. Out of control fire on the site of a nuclear power plant is not what you want. There was international condemnation, for all that's worth. But anyway, Edwin Lyman of the Union of Concerned Scientists said if a firefight had damaged more of the plant's critical systems and engineers hadn't been able to reach the emergency backups, this was potentially irreversible. Tom Bielefeld, who's a German nuclear security expert, called the shooting a near miss and an act of, quote, dangerous idiocy, unquote, which I think we can all agree with. Okay, moving on to March 4th, the Russian Ministry of Defense announces that Zaporizhzhia is under Russian control. Since it was supposed to have been under Russian control since February 28th, they had to come up with a, cock and bull story to explain. And what they came up with was there was a monstrous provocation by Ukrainians, which, I mean, I just love. Okay, the Ukrainians did a provocation by attempting to protect themselves when the Russians attacked them, right? Anyway, so Adam, over to you.
Yeah, it's the layers. The layers of lies are shocking. Not so much anymore, but it comes to light sometimes. It was all broadcast live on YouTube, as we just learned, but that doesn't matter. No one will check. They will just believe what they want to, and no one knows this better than the information warriors of the Kremlin.
Yeah, exactly. And in among all these lies, there was no mention of Russian tanks and missile volleys at the station. And there's in their story, what had happened? The training complex had allegedly been set ablaze by retreating Ukrainian commandos, those nasty Ukrainian nationalists, because of course it would be logical for Ukrainians to set their own nuclear power plant on fire.
Yes,
Adam.
yes. I read about this on Telegram. They were wearing afro wigs and they had houseplants on their back as camouflage in the nuclear plant. And they were actually gay, Jewish, Nazi NATO fighters in disguise. And they dropped copies of Sims 2 and icons of Bandera as they fled.
I love that. That's what I need. I need an icon of Bandera. Yes, but exactly right. I mean, we laugh at this, but this bullshit they try to propagate with a totally straight face. It's like after MH17 was shot down, the 21 different competing excuses for how it wasn't Russia's fault. It's really, and this is another thing that it's time. The time has come for people not to accept this as though it were true. The time has come for people to call them out every time they do something like this. This is happening more often now. And God bless Radek Sikorsky. He really goes after them sometimes. But we need more of that. We need people to, every time they open their mouth with a BS lie, somebody needs to nail them on it. But anyway, okay. So next section. As Adam was talking about the YouTube live stream, with the YouTube live stream of the Russian takeover of Zaporizhzhia, it was clear that the war had gone nuclear, and the danger of a nuclear accident could no longer be ignored. This was at Chernobyl. People, I think, tried to head their head in the sand. Some people, but with the fact that this entire takeover was live streamed on YouTube, made it a lot harder to pretend nothing was happening. Dmytro Kuleba tweeted about the danger and said it could be 10 times bigger than Chernobyl. And, this is there are 6 reactors, I think, at Zaporizhzhia. It could, I mean, it still is today. We're still in tremendous danger. The Russians recently moved a bunch
And
of
Chernobyl's in danger again because of all these
and
strikes in
Chernobyl is
the Kiev region.
yeah. Well, and they're particularly actually all the nuclear power plants in Ukraine, because the Russians have been targeting, specifically targeting the electricity feeds into the power plants, which are needed. There needs to be electricity coming in to keep the cooling and everything going. And they have both Zaporizhzhia and Chernobyl have been cut off several times from the electricity they need in order to keep the cooling going, to keep from meltdown. I mean, totally, well, irresponsible. There's got to be a worse word than that, but
Orc responsible.
yeah, and just as whoever that guy was up there said, idiocy. Because if God forbid, there's an accident at Zaporizhzhia, where's the wind gonna blow? It's like it's this lack of concern for individuals, for human rights or anything, even extends to their own people. As long as they can screw the Ukrainians, they don't care if they take thousands of their own people with them in order to do it. It's a really sick way of looking at the world. Anyway, okay, so we talked about Kuleba. President Zelensky on Telegram said, and people should listen, Europe should wake up. Europe's largest atomic station is on fire right now. Russian tanks are firing on atomic blocks. These tanks are equipped with thermal imagers so they know what they are shooting at. They prepared for this. I'm addressing all those who know the word Chernobyl. Russia wants to repeat that and is already doing so, but multiplied by 6. Can't argue with that. The State Nuclear Regulatory Inspectorate of Ukraine updated in real time on the website what was going on the whole time. At the time of the attack, only one of the 6 reactors was operational. 2 had been shut down earlier. One was undergoing planned repairs, and 2 were shut down and disconnected from the grid as a result of the attack. Unit 4 provided electricity needed for the functioning of the station and to avoid meltdown of out-of-service reactors. That one, thank God, was not compromised. So they had 1 reactor that is still working enough to keep a disaster from happening. Now, the readers of there was a website that operators from all over Ukraine and other power plants were this is where they all communicated. And there was nobody had technical advice to offer. Instead, they hoped and prayed for a miracle. And to quote one of them, Lord, forgive us and have mercy on us sinners. Queen of heaven, cover the skies above Ukraine with your veil. All heavenly powers, protect us from the hostile adversary. And this was at this point, this was all that people could do. There was, they could not appeal to the intelligence of the orc invaders. They could not. The IAEA had rendered itself completely irrelevant. No one was coming to help. So there was people were not were helpless. At whatever the Russians did at this point. In Israel, Nikolai Steinberg, who was the former chief engineer of Chernobyl, the Chernobyl power plant from May 1986 to March 1987, he was well known and respected. He wrote addressing fellow nuclear engineers and scientists. The quote: "I know what a nuclear catastrophe is, not from textbooks, not from newspaper articles, and not from political statement. What more does that bastard have to do?" And I have a note here to read, and I had not opened the book, so hang on half a second here. It was too much to type out.
I wonder what bastard
Okay.
he's talking about.
Yeah, I wonder. Yeah. Hang on while I change my glasses. Okay.
Well, I can take a
Yeah.
couple
Oh, it
guesses.
actually says in the book itself, it says, "What more does that bastard," and then in square brackets, Putin, have to do for the world to realize that it is not global warming that will kill everyone. Do you want to read part of this, Adam?
Oh, no, it's all you. I don't have it in front
Okay.
of me. Then we just
Okay.
wait for me to grab it.
No, it's fine. Okay, so as I said, what more does that bastard have to do for the world to realize that it is not global warming that will kill everyone? He is being collegially supported by, quote, peaceable atomic scientists. Not one of the leaders of Russian atomic energy has condemned the criminal acts of their Fuhrer or even expressed concern about the consequences of such a flagrant criminal act. Base cowards, and where are you, atomic scientists of the world, hiding your heads under your wings like ostriches? You know better than anyone else that nuclear tragedy is not local. The time for political correctness is over, unquote. Steinberg also attacked German leaders for replacing nuclear energy with Russian gas and French leaders for failing to react. His appeal was published the same day on numerous nuclear sites in Ukraine.
When an Israeli uses the word Führer to refer to another leader, context.
Yes. Well, I would see again Israeli and a Ukrainian.
Exactly.
Ukrainians and Jews all know about what the Führer can do to you, and yeah, it's a very freighted word to use and totally warranted. Okay, and a lot of this criticism was directed first and foremost at the IAEA, which God, what a useless group. Grassi again was, quote, extremely concerned about the situation at Zaporizhzhia Nuclear Power Plant and what happened there during the night, but he still can't bring himself to mention that Russia had anything to do with it. And it appears
it
at
leaves
this
him
point,
open to blame the Banderites later in case.
Right, exactly.
He was still waiting for, because that other guy told him that Russia was going to win in 3 days, so he was just waiting for that to happen.
Yeah, that probably is part of it. God, isn't it disgusting?
Unrepentantly useless and impotent. And
exactly.
And I think it's part of what Carney was talking about. We can't depend on international institutions when they are infiltrated and controlled by our enemies. Somehow the so-called Russian Federation ended up with the USSR's Security Council seat. They did not deserve it. There was just nothing happened. They just did it. And so on and so forth. And Grazi's best buddy from Rosatom, and on and on and on. And I feel like, there can be an international Western democracy nuclear association, but there will be no fucking Hungarian CEOs or or so-called Russian CEOs on it. It'll be Frenchmen and Canadians and maybe the US if you get your shit together.
Yes, I hope that happens. But I think that this is actually at this point to expect the IAEA to do anything. I think that Ukraine has to appeal to them because that's the only body there is. But at the same time, it's not. They have definitely shown themselves to be completely incompetent and possibly in Russia's pocket. Okay, so this attack triggers another useless organization. The UN Security Council had a meeting. Grassi reports that the IAEA Incident and Emergency Center are finally in full response mode. He never explains why they didn't have it after the Chernobyl takeover. There's a plan to send a mission to assess and ensure the security of the reactors. He decries, quote, armed forces in charge of the site, unquote, but still can't bring himself to say Russia. And it gives the impression he's talking to both sides, although apparently he was only turning the screws on Ukraine and was not doing anything to try to get the Russians to behave. So a lot of useless people in all of this. Okay, other people, however, had no problem laying the blame where it belonged.
Oh, we got a hand. We got Alexa hand.
Oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't looking. Go ahead, Lexicon.
I could never tell if can't see if it's up there. So, but anyway, yeah. So he goes on and on like this, because remember, eventually when their team eventually gets there, and they see this missile, this thrown thing stuck in the ground. And apparently the Russians have actually even turned it. Anyway, they cannot determine where it came from, like the trajectory of it. So what was the origin of it, etc. You know what?
Yeah, like it turned around in midair, right?
Yeah, and
Yep.
he even asks about it. And they're like, "Oh yeah, this one goes
We
backwards."
don't know. Everything is, and they're referring things forever, and they're going to study. What I'm thinking is calling all graduate students. Some master or doctoral dissertation needs to be done on specifically IAEA and maybe on a number of agencies, but just to go in and document how the links between, because I think with Grassi there's lots of links to Russia and tanky activities and outfits. And what is amazing is that, well, I don't know. I was wrestling with some slightly tanky leaning old friends who are tremendously well educated and informed and everything. And every time I talk about ways that Russia uses soft power, the way that they infiltrate organizations, the way that they convince academics who have a great deal of ego, of course, oh, your fascinating paper, they attend your panel. Then a little while later, they write you, can I have your email? And then they email you and say, oh, there's this conference going on. Would you like to come? And we could get a grant for you for your flight and your lodge, etc. And these people say, well, of course we do the same thing. And so, and I'm scratching my head trying to figure out, do we do exactly, I mean, of course we do the same thing. And China does the same thing, that's for sure. But I'm trying to think, what is it about this? It's stuff like they understand, they acknowledge, okay, the funding of ultra right wing, extreme right wing parties in Europe and so on. They can see that that's pretty far gone. Of course, now J.D. Vance does the same thing. But at any rate, I think we need to document this. And I just have been thinking about this argument of theirs, that it's everything that the Russians do is the same thing we do. And yet we all acknowledge that in disinformation, they're way ahead. And you can cite Tim Pool and all that kind of, with pennies, at costs of pennies, they can get so much airtime in Western social media. But at any rate, I have got a conundrum trying to figure this out and trying to unrelativize this, that all they're doing is just fighting with all their instruments the way we are. Like, we have people on all the international organizations, and the head of World Bank up till now, except for now, has always been an American, and this, that, and the other thing. So anyway, just a conundrum I present to you.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's this moral relativism that people somehow they want to say, well, everybody has a point. Both sides have a point. There's no right, there's no wrong, and this is just not the case. I mean, we have to go back to the beginning and saying, there is this country, Ukraine, that was sitting there minding its own business, and it was invaded by a genocidal lunatic regime on its border, determined to destroy it. We start from there, and then we talk about how we react. There is no moral, there is no there's no you can't both sides are not the same. There is one side that is innocent and worthy of protection. There's another side that is evil and should be condemned and should be undermined in any way possible. This is just the fact. Until, welcome. Over to you.
Thank you. Yes, it reminds me of active measures. They're trying to present both sides. Is one of the tenets of the garbage that the Kremlin propaganda spews, which is basically, oh, well, we have our bad guys and so do you, and we do this bad thing, but so do you. And it makes everybody on a same playing field. So it doesn't, there is no moral equivalent that's valid to them. This is obviously not the case. So the attack on us being able to differentiate between facts and between what's true and what's not, that line becomes blurred and it becomes more difficult to navigate. And that is exactly what they are seeking, for us to be able to question, not within reason, within the exercise of democracy or institutions, but rather distrust them and make them out to be just as ineffective as theirs. I mean, Russian poop fountains don't show up, in where we live in most Western democracies, or even Ukraine right next to them. So that's the great danger that Ukraine poses to that regime, which is the example of, look how these people are actually living, how they organize their society. It clearly presents an alternative that you can see functioning. And that possibility scares the crap out of Putin, because he knows that it's very, very easily people can look to their neighbor and say, hey, you know what? I want what they're having. I want to be able to have institutional security and political participation and all these things that they are having. That's why they seek to overwhelm us with lies and make it extremely difficult for us to differentiate between what's reality, what's truth, and what's not. So the idea that optics count in the media, yes, it does, but that's being weaponized and driven to the extreme as a tool to drive a wedge between us and the faith that we have in our institutions. So those are my 2 cents, and I love listening to you guys.
Well, thanks. I do always appreciate when you come up. You've always got something good to add. So thanks for joining us. Yeah, I think I can't argue with anything you said. It's something, you bringing up those poop fountains. This is really true. Russia's infrastructure has not been under attack for 4 years. Ukraine's has. But it's the Russian infrastructure that's falling apart, not the Ukrainian. That even with all of the, continual attacks, continual attempts to destroy Ukrainian infrastructure, every single time they're out immediately. The energy workers and the people who work on the water and everything, they get everything running again, no matter how many times the Russians try to destroy it. And nobody's trying to destroy it in Russia. It's just all falling apart because of a dysfunctional society. I totally agree with you that that Ukraine is a terrible threat to Putin and to that regime, and part of it is of their own making, because they did this big thing about brotherly nations, which is bullshit anyway. But they have defined Ukrainians as being the same as Russians, and that even makes the question more obvious. Why are those other bunch of so-called Russians, why do they have a functioning civil society, of a standard of living that Russians can only dream about, freedom of assembly, freedom of information, free elections or whatever, if they're just the same as Russians? So they have made this even worse for themselves. If any Russian who manages to get out from under all the propaganda and really see what's going on is going to ask that question: why can't we have what Ukrainians have? And it's a good question, and we know the reasons, because of the people on the top who who are bleeding the country dry and keeping the rest of the population enserfed. Adam, anything from you, and then we'll keep
I think it's a level of it's a thing of degrees, right? I mean, yes, many Western nations have gone on unjust wars in the last few years. And it's funny because everyone realizes that now. Well, there was a group of people screaming it at the time. But then it became this excuse for us to never do anything good again, because war bad. And so here we are. And it was like, a gift to the authoritarian powers of the world to convince the Western mind that we're really fucking bad and we can't do anything good. And if we try, we're going to fuck up. Like, that's where we are right now. And that's what that argument is. Like, our grandfathers fucking stormed Normandy and died by the dozens, and then they went and fucking killed the Nazis, right? And you pussies are here like, oh, we did some bad stuff 10 years ago, and it's basically an excuse for us to not try anything again. It's whataboutism, it's relativism, and it's cowardly. It's cowardly from all sides. And I see both, I'm going to use the word in heavy air quotes, sides do it, because I hear the same bullshit excuse about we do bad wars, so therefore we can't do nothing ever again, from the far left fucking hippie musicians that I know and the far right supposed conservative maple maggots that I fucking talk to in my work life. The same thing. The horseshoe tips touching. And it's a perfect example. And and like all of these things, it falls apart when you stop putting all these fucking political buzzword screams and take it down to its moral equivalent of, yes, genocide. Yes, wars can be just. I'm sorry. Your grandfather fucking died fighting Nazis, and you're telling me we can't do anything heroic or good? Fuck off.
Yeah, this is thank you, Adam. This is something that you put this in focus for me. It always drives me crazy when you see this Americans often, and well, I wouldn't say left or right. I think it's probably more on left. Whatever
It's both. The tips are touching. Chomsky
yeah,
and Bannon are
yeah.
fucking
No, it's
buddies.
true. That's true. But it's this, oh, we're so bad. Oh, we're terrible. We committed a genocide on the Native Americans, which is true. I'm not going to argue with that. But we did this. So therefore, we have no agency. We have no ability to make a positive effect on the world. So we're just going to close the borders and sit here and ignore everybody. And and that's the easy way out. The difficult way is to say, yes, we've done things wrong in the past. We're trying to make up for that as much as we can, but in the future we're not going to make those mistakes. We're going to stand up for what's right, and that you don't see nearly enough of in this country, at least.
Yeah, it's not just there. You guys are just, as always, ahead of the curve. But yeah, this fascist rise of non-reality has been really propelled, and accelerated by social media and yeah, on freedom.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, Untal, go ahead.
Just on a specific point, the degree to which our distrust in our institutions has been growing. Unfortunately, that distrust feeds both sides, and what Adam said is completely true. It feeds both sides of the spectrum. The horseshoe tips do meet at the center, but there is hope. I have something that I always remember from my grandpa that they told me: always look for the people who are helping and who are setting an example. And I always go back to look at the people setting the example right now are actually the Ukrainians. they're the ones who are willing to do the hard thing. Something they used to tell us growing up is embrace the suck. If you're learning, going through pains when you're learning something or doing something extremely difficult, usually something worthwhile doing, you have to embrace the suck. And right now, the Ukrainians have been embracing the suck for years. And slowly but surely, the suck is going to come for us. And the only ones providing an example of how we go about tackling these huge problems are the Ukrainians. And I love the fact that Ukrainian leadership is so young, that is young people that are actually looking forward, trying to build a future for their country and not necessarily entrenching themselves and trying to secure power and trying to bolt themselves into positions of authority. I love the fact that every time any scandal or any wrongdoing in the Ukrainian administration comes out and gets aired, it gets aired and it gets dealt with, and it works itself out, and there's an institution and a framework to work it out, especially when they're tackling one of the root causes of corruption, which is an in my view, has been exported to so many countries, especially in Latin America, which is the whole Russian idea of how operating under the table and doing things, cutting corners and shady backroom deals as the norm. That they're trying to get rid of all that and actually build an institution and work towards building institutionality and not doing, for example, what the United States is doing, which is a complete 180 and a complete cult of personality that is being cultivated. So you see Ukraine going in one direction, and sadly the United States going in the other, complete opposite direction. And again, it goes to show you that both sides are not the same, and that has to be very energetically said and repeated until we can make it basically go. Reaches critical mass. We have to remind people constantly that both sides are not the same, that there is a complete difference between the aggressor and the victim, that they should never be treated the same, and that there are options that are out there for us to be able to spaces for us to engage with each other and learn from the people who are actually embracing the suck and doing the hard thing.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's exactly
God,
right.
The phrases I don't learn from the modern youth. Never. Never.
Us old parts got to learn from the youngins.
Yes.
Yeah, it is true. Until this is coming from, this is it's that Maidan spirit still that, it's starting in 2014 in particular. This, Ukraine took a different path than just about any country before then. And we still see this. You see, I mean, look at the new, Fedorov, the new Minister of Defense. He's 34 years old. I mean, can you imagine? And he's more of an adult than
He's a Maidan Molodets is what he is, and that's what Antal was talking about. Democracy
right.
requires participation, active participation. We've had generations of us fatties living off of our grandfathers doing amazing things and fighting for their freedom and their weekends and all of that. And we just figure, 50 fucking percent of us vote do the very minimum required by democracy to keep it going. And that's where we're at. And what we see is Ukrainians, we don't believe in our institutions all over the place because we're not supporting them. I refer you to chapter 6 or whatever. Support an institution.
Although, it's really funny. I mean, Ukrainians have a really healthy suspicion of anything in government, but that doesn't keep them from being very active in trying to change things and trying to make things better.
Which is
That's
what
something
that suspicion is part of that suspicion. What comes with that suspicion is a giver attitude, a get up and go, and let's change it attitude, especially since Maidan, right?
but
Yeah,
it's an empowered attitude. It's an empowered attitude of like, let's fix it, and it's not a defeatist like, oh well, we can't do anything about it. Remember about Iraq and Afghanistan and so many things. We should not get into foreign wars and blah 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 talking points. And it's like, no, my dude, every cause, every subject that you can, or criticism that you can bring up, you can criticize it, but are you going to stick in the criticism, or are you going to actually do something about it? And that's the difference in attitude that Ukrainians bring, where the suspicion for institutions, yeah, it's there, but the Ukrainian attitude is like, all right, I want to oversee what's going on. I want to participate because I want this thing to get done. And they believe that it can be done. That's why they participate. And it's not a defeatist attitude, where that's what Russia cultivates in their narratives all over the place in every subject. Is like, well, you should never, don't even try, my dude. It's just, that's the way it is, and it's not worth it. And the distrust is not, it's not a valid criticism that is built. Is just simply to annihilate any possibility in your mind that you think you can actually make a dent, you can actually influence the outcome.
He just summed up Dostoevsky, his entire work. My dude, not worth it. He's gonna get crushed.
Well, I'm happy to say I have never managed to be able to read much Russian literature. It's just too
He summed
depressing.
it
But
up for
yeah,
you. There you go. That's
okay,
it.
good. Thank you. So now I don't have to. Yeah, I mean, Ukrainians are all about agency in every aspect of life. I mean, it really, like I was saying, the guy who rigged up a shower for his family with some kind of a pump he got in a hardware store somewhere. Everything. I mean, this is something that the world should learn from Ukraine, that Ukrainians, when they see problems, they immediately go beyond the problem to say, what are we going to do about it? How are we going to solve it? There's very little wallowing. There's very little, oh, poor meanness. And boy, if anybody deserved to be able to really be, really feel put upon, it's Ukrainians after, well, 4 years after 11 years, since 2014, after centuries of Russians, treating them in the most, I mean, brutal and completely unfair way. But they don't waste a lot of time with that. It's constantly everything that happens, whatever happens. Okay, this is this is the situation. What are we going to do about it? And it's really admirable. It's amazing. I don't know any other nation that responds so consistently in this way. Anyway, all right. Let's go back to let's see where we are. Oh, we're talking about okay. We were talking about reactions to the invasion of Zaporizhzhia. As we said, the IAEA couldn't even bring themselves to say Russia had anything to do with it. U.S. Ambassador Linda Thompson Greenfield, ambassador to the UN, had no trouble with that. She said Russia's attack last night put Europe's largest nuclear power plant at grave risk. It was incredibly reckless and dangerous and threatened the safety of civilians across Russia, Ukraine, and Europe. By the grace of God, the world narrowly averted a nuclear catastrophe that night. French Ambassador Nicolas de Rivière, Russia must immediately cease its illegal and dangerous activities in order to restore the control of the Ukrainian authorities over all nuclear facilities. And, this is my comment, that he doesn't say this, but, this again goes back to the basic issue. Why in the world does anybody think that Russia has any business claiming any power from Zaporizhzhia? What it's Zaporizhzhia, the power plant is miles inside of the internationally recognized Ukrainian borders. They don't owe Russians anything. Russians have no right to be demanding anything. It's, if they want to if they want nuclear energy, let them build their own plants. It's this just I don't as my note here, I don't see how Zelensky can keep from not screaming at Witless and all the rest of them, and who present this as some kind of solution. Yeah, madam.
It's so on the nose, because the deal with Witless and Kucherov was to mine crypto with excess energy. So they're gonna make the fake money with the stolen watts from Zaporizhzhia. It's just, it's for anyone who's paying attention, it's like they're making fun of you for even trying to pay attention, because if you're not part of the brainwashed in the horseshoe, then it's time to just be mocked. I don't know. That's how I feel sometimes.
Yeah, no, it's true.
It's like, are you serious? This is not real. It feels like an episode of Sliders, actually. Now going back to the beginning of the episode.
It's true. It's really, it's the people who are standing up for what's right are the ones who get derided. It really is. It's what a world, Anyway, and of course, okay, so there was an attempt to pass a resolution in the Security Council, which of course the Russians blocked. And here's the bullshit answer they gave why they blocked the resolution. It was because the Ukrainians had caused the fire, and Russia had to take the plant under its protection. And same thing as Chernobyl. By invading the plant and firing missiles and stuff at a nuclear power facility and taking it over, not allowing firefighters in, not having anybody who can run the plant safely, they were taking the plant under their protection. And I think we've stopped uh, parroting some of this at this point. But the fact that anybody with a straight face could have even acted like they accept this as an excuse, as a reality, with it all being broadcast on YouTube, it just this again, with bullies, if you acquiesce to what they're saying, it just gets worse. So okay, so this is now what Plokhy says. The UN and its institutions proved incapable of stopping or reversing the Russian takeover of the Zaporizhzhia plant, as they had been unable to stop the takeover of Chernobyl or mitigate the situation in any way. Ukraine and the people of Enerhodar were pretty much left to their own devices, which is, this is what happens to Ukraine again and again. Adam.
Yeah. So this is a pattern of not, it's not just the IAEA. We've seen this not naming the aggressor on so many fronts from so many cowardly institutions and international organizations. I'd say at this point, the normalization is complete. We're sitting here, we're reading this book, and coming across all these amazing and scary revelations of how close we were to another nuclear catastrophe, while it doesn't even make the 6 o'clock news that 99% of us see that Chernobyl is without power and in trouble right now, as well as Zaporizhzhia had just got power back and is without power again, and yada, yada, yada. The normalization is there completely. And when it's not there, they use it because they've used these scares again and over again to as part of their nuclear scare tactics, whether it's them saying they're going to build a dirty bomb or we're going to hear about the Ukraine secret nuclear weapons factory that they were building and looking for in Chernobyl and all of it. So when it's like a boy cried wolf thing, right? Like it gets to a point where the world just ignores the nuclear scare tactics coming from any Ukrainian power plant. It's just, that again? Like, you can just see the editors worried about how many clicks they get on their Facebook feeds for their once storied news organizations that are now limited to advertising agencies. And that again, more problems at nuclear power plants. That's so 23, bro. Let's go with more Orange Man Greenland stuff. It's really hitting the pipes right now. Let's go.
Yeah, exactly. Or the Epstein files. Yeah, whatever happened to this? Never mind. But that's part of what That's part of what the Russians have managed to do is to make people yawn and look away, and that's something we have to fight against because what's going on? What's going on in Zaporizhzhia now is, it's just as dangerous as it was the first day. Nothing has improved at all. And also in the day that the Russians blasted a hole in the containment building in Chernobyl, that should have resulted in massive reaction. I mean, think about it. That was the building that containment building cost billions of dollars. It was it was a wide international buy-in to getting that done to protect the world. This wasn't for Ukraine. This was for the entire world. And everybody yawned and looked away when they basically compromised the integrity of that building. Um, One could get very depressed. Okay, so let's see. Um, Yeah. You have? Is there anything else in the note you wrote here that you wanted to
No, it
mention
was
before we
very
go on?
topical to
Okay.
something. I was
Okay.
very angry that day because obviously uh, Kiev high rises were exploding on Christmas Day, which is how far ahead we are in the notes, you guys, or maybe
Yeah.
how much we kvetch. Go ahead, James.
Yeah.
I just wanted to talk about this report I've been looking at while you guys are talking. It's the Atomic Energy Commission or something like this. Anyways, it's not the IEA, whatever. And what I saw was I wanted to look at the date, which was February 14th, was the day that the new cover was struck and damaged. And I found that, but it said, it was not struck. It says because I typed in sarcophagus, it said the sarcophagus was not struck. It was the other thing, the new one that was struck, but it was so misleading there. But then, I said, "Oh, okay, now I've got that date in mind." So I go look at this report, and I find that most of the buttons, there's like little blue, purple pill-shaped buttons that are on there where you can jump from one topic to another. And Chernobyl, basically, very few of those work. They don't go anywhere. So I'm maybe it's me. I'm going to keep looking at this, and I'll have more to say next week after I look at it more closely and thoroughly. But they're not mentioning it at all. They
So there's
haven't
the
mentioned it in the main part of
sarcophagus,
the
which
report.
was the original enclosure.
Yeah,
Right,
which is underneath
Which is
the new
yeah,
building.
right.
so I'm not sure, it might be just a nomenclature issue.
No, no. I mean, I'm just talking about just finding things about Chernobyl,
Just
period, in
just
this
finding
report because,
anything. Yeah, oh I know.
yeah,
It's difficult.
it's amazing how much stuff
Ho
is not
hum.
here.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's all I got.
Start Googling
Yeah.
with your Ukrainian keyboard and you'll probably find more in Ukrainian news, honestly.
Yeah. Well, that's also true. That's also true. Yeah. See, guys, you want to just learn Ukrainian. It's simple, right, Adam?
Well, you Google translate what you want to ask,
No,
and
that's
then you
okay.
put it in Ukrainian Google with your Ukrainian keyboard. You can just copy paste. And then
And
you
you
can
just
auto
hope that Google.
translate whatever things you read. It's rather time consuming. Even
Yeah,
if
and
you
also
only half-ass
considering
know
how the
Ukrainian.
inaccuracies in Google Translate, I wouldn't so much translation. I wouldn't count on getting the real thing out of the at the end of it all. It's sort of like playing telephone.
Twitter does better, I think.
Actually, the one that I find that works the best is ChatGPT for translating out of Ukrainian into English. But whatever. Anyway, okay. So where are we? Okay, the Russians have taken over Zaporizhzhia. At the beginning of the occupation, they disarmed the defenders, but in contradistinction to what went on at Chernobyl, the defenders were allowed to leave the plant after signing a document that they would not participate in future hostilities and leaving their weapons, which later on the Russians bragged about this large cache of NATO model weapons that they had seized, which were the weapons that they made these defenders leave when they left. And I certainly hope that every single one of them went out and joined and returned immediately to hostilities after signing stupid piece of paper. Over to you, Adam.
But still no NATO POWs to this day. They always get away with their Afro wigs and you leave their SIM cards behind, their Sims 2 games behind. Obviously, our effeminate transgender militaries have excellent training and bite down on those suicide pills right away to avoid capture.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's amazing considering that the Russians have been fighting NATO for 4 years. They haven't caught one single NATO soldier. Oh well, but see, this is the positive thing about not having to pay attention, use any logic. It doesn't slow them down. So anyway, okay. So the Russians did not immediately interfere with the work of the station personnel of the city administration. Um, Elena, who is the person who he'd spoken about before, who was talked about what's going on in Enerhodar, she says that they were SMSs from the mayor asking people to stay at home so as not to quote unquote provoke the Russians to fire on civilians. This sort of cooperative affect only lasted a couple of days, though. By March 6th, the Ukrainian authorities reported to the IAEA that the staff of the plant had been subordinated to Russian military authority. In the city, they turned off mobile networks and the internet to cut off communication, both within the city and with the rest of the world. On March 7th, there was a mass demonstration to mourn the defenders of the power plant who had been killed in the plant takeover. At that point, the Russians didn't interfere, but changes started to take place after that. Ukrainian activists began to be arrested one at a time. In March 19th, Orlov, the mayor's deputy, Ivan Semodiuk, was arrested. Orlov called a demonstration. In response to that, 1,500 people showed up. The Russians responded with light noise grenades and tried to arrest someone, but that person was freed by the action of the crowd. Again, this is Ukrainians choosing to have agency. They didn't allow the Russians to get away with this. Then to quote Plokhy, the Ukrainians celebrated a victory. It turned out to be the last one. So by April 2nd, almost 1 month into the occupation, there was another rally, and it was more in defiance rather than of a specific goal. The response at the end of the rally was an increase in the number of troops, Russian troops in the town. And there were arguments with Ukrainians arguing with these Russian occupiers, saying, why can't we demonstrate? You freed us after all, they said to them. The answer was, who told you were freed? The city has been occupied by troops of the Russian Federation, which is true. This is accidentally they're speaking the truth. They supposedly invaded to free all these Russian speakers, and now these Russian speakers are saying to them, you told who that you came to free us. No, you're not free. You're now subject to the Russian Federation. So, yet again, speaking truth by unintentionally, I guess. This was the first time they used live ammunition against the demonstrators. And this order was most likely given by General Valery Vasilyev, who had replaced Alexei Dombrovsky in late March. Keep that name in mind for the post-victory International Criminal Court proceeding. What? Adam?
Or some awesome Budanov Mossad style business. I would enjoy that more personally, but I'm terrible. So Plokhy never says it, but I'm glad he names these war criminals. He never says it, but I can and I will, is that any one of those dirty orcs would have been happy or glad to give orders to fire on demonstrators. And I would posit that I remember at the time there was this surprise and this amazing elation about Ukrainians in occupied territories demonstrating and staring down the Russian army. But as we know, they use CCTV and investigated and found out who those people were and quietly disappeared them over the ensuing 4 years. And yeah, so even when it seems like they're being nice, they're not.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, as you're saying, there's been a constant. They hunt down anyone who they identify as a Ukrainian nationalist, and this can be anyone who, this can be something as simple as speaking Ukrainian. I mean, doesn't take a lot to be outed as a Ukrainian nationalist to these Russians. So okay, so. Yeah, Ukraine. It's Ukraine has charged Dombrovsky for giving the order to storm Zaporizhzhia. So in Ukrainian court, after Dombrovsky left, the operators of the plant and citizens turned into hostages, similar to what had already happened in Chernobyl. So that's the end of this chapter. Let's see, what time is it? Okay, so we'll move on now. We're actually, Adam, we've gotten to chapter 7. Can you believe it?
Woo!
Yeah. Okay, so this chapter 7 is called a Dirty Bomb. Now we're back in Chernobyl now, and early March. Oh, I don't have the date. Sorry about that. Well, 7 a.m. Valentin Hayko calls General Sergei Burakov and Frolenko and the other Russian officers to his office. There was a report about Putler's threat to put Russian strategic forces on high alert in response to NATO's, quote, aggressive statements. This was widely understood as a nuclear threat, that by putting strategic forces on high alert, this is a threat of a nuclear, some kind of nuclear incident. Hayko, God, this guy, I mean, unbelievable. He told them, this is a quote, "We have nothing to lose. I promise you that you will slowly and certainly die together here together with me. I have enough knowledge and skill to ensure that you will remain here with us forever. Tell your commanders that either they conduct themselves in a civilized manner or there will be another Chernobyl here." Adam.
One can only hope that they would show this much fortitude and presence of mind in a similar occupied situation. I mean, he's basically saying all these things with an AK-47 pointed to the center of his forehead, whether it's there at the moment or not. And yeah, and I mean, what else? Like maybe he wasn't a Banderite in particular, but I would define this as a Ukrainian nationalist. And here was one right in front of them, but he was essential and he knew it, and he used that power against them, and they've got, yeah. I'm constantly
Yes.
amazed. He's doing it on purpose. He's making us, and I'm glad we have a good hero in this one, because there were no damn heroes in the last Chernobyl book besides those poor firefighters who got knocked out so early.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's no, this guy, I mean, it's absolutely fearless. I'd love to know. I'd love to know more about his childhood, how he grew up. I mean, it really. Can you imagine? I mean, he doesn't seem to have flinched through this whole experience, however many days it was. He kept on them the whole time. Um, and he threatened irreversible processes in the remaining active reactors and reminded them they had no idea how anything worked. This in
We skipped
reality,
a part though.
oh, what
They
did I
seem
do?
to have believed him.
Oh,
Frolenkov complained later that
yes, yes,
Hayko had blackmailed him, to which it's like breaking into someone's house and then stubbing your toe on something they left on the floor and then blaming them for it. So despicable.
yeah,
People never realize
exactly.
how despicable they are, how despicable their
Yes.
complaints
No,
are.
it's like somebody stealing something from you and then getting all upset when you take it back, right? It's the same kind of thing. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. He complained that Heiko had blackmailed him, which is really I mean it's really rich because who invaded what, and who was he was the one who basically what Frolenko, what his problem was is he realized that he'd been duped. Heiko really took him for a ride. God bless him. I mean, it's really, it's just amazing. The strength of character it must have taken to deliver these demands to, like you're saying, with an AK-47, aimed at your head. It's really amazing. Lexicon, go ahead.
Well, no, I just want to ask you. I imagine you're going to tell us, so I don't quite get how we know what he thought afterwards. Like, so I take it they're going to have to withdraw from this plant before they withdraw from the rest of the North, or like ultimately these guys have to leave.
No, we're not even there yet. He's still just like laying down ground rules on them. Like he's just like,
but this
if
guy
you're,
later complained he'd been blackmailed. So later,
well, he'd been blackmailed into, even though he was the person in the situation who obviously, by any normal context, should have the power and the control, it was taken from him. And he described it as blackmail because someone in an occupied situation who knew, like, because of what he said, like, yeah, don't fuck around or else we'll both die here of radiation and you won't even know it until after it happens. I guess I would say he threatened him with a reality that he couldn't control, even though he was the guy with the gun.
But who's
it had
interviewing
nothing
this?
to do with withdrawal or anything. We're not there yet. I don't.
Right, we're not there yet. So how do we know that that he said this? Like he's not. Is he giving interviews to the Russian press? Or?
No, yeah, he's mentioned before that Frolenkov had become a bit of a celebrity back on Solovyov Live and all, and Margarita Simonyan's home kitchen review or whatever the heck. So he doesn't say it every time, but we know that Frolenkov was talking to the Russian media, whereas the general that was actually in charge was keeping pretty quiet because Heiko reminded him that they were committing war crimes. So he like scared the general off off the bat, and then just kind of has Frolenkov on a leash, and then Frolenkov's going back on Solovyov and complaining about this. Like, yeah, it's ridiculous.
It's pretty amazing too, because it makes him complaining about it makes it even clearer that he was an idiot.
Yeah, exactly. It's like this guy, I was there raping his daughter, and this guy totally defrauded me. Like, what?
Exactly. Oh gosh. No. Okay. So and to go on in this same theme, Heiko threatened irreversible processes in the remaining active reactors and remind them they had no idea how anything worked. When in point of fact, the reactors had already been shut down since 2000. But these Russian commanders had no knowledge about nuclear reactors, and obviously they didn't have any intelligence or nobody. Wasn't it known that the plant had been shut down? But they were like so in Russia, as it was in the Soviet Union, any kind of information is kept very close, so nobody knows anything. So this guy, he managed to threaten them with these active reactors that were supposed to do something when in fact all of them had already been shut down years ago, many years ago, 22 years before. It's really pretty amazing. Adam.
Oops, I scrolled down too far. Yeah. In defense of the rest of humanity, you wouldn't have to know too much about nuclear physics to realize this lie. You would have to possess at least half a brain and have been briefed in any way as to the nature of your mission by your orc overlords. Like, how did these guys not get told that Chernobyl was shut down? Or maybe they should have watched the 2019 miniseries from HBO and they would have been better informed, right?
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Like your basic PBS viewer or whatever it was would have known all of this.
They don't do it.
Well, I mean, this is one of the positive things about dealing with Russians, though they really do shoot themselves in the foot this way. They by keeping all of this information away from the people who needed it. Information is power. We're going to keep it from you. They actually allowed Heiko and the rest of the Ukrainians at the plant to run these guys around. Later on, I think it's in the next chapter, they talk about a couple of soldiers, a couple of plant workers making a point of talking where the Russian conscripts could hear them talking about, gee, we've run out of the anti-radiation pills. Now we're really screwed, and they got these idiots all upset. They didn't have any radiation pills, and the Ukrainians had radiation pills. Of course, there was no such thing. And there was, in point of fact, there was no danger from radiation at that point. But they had, as you're saying, none of them had been given any kind of briefing, any kind of information about where they were going and what the situation was there. So
They should have taken
In
rat
conclusion,
poison and put it in the medical closet and marked
yes,
it
in capsules.
in capsules and marked it as in Rusian as radiation pills. And they could even use
thank God they're so
irradiated
damn
rat poison.
stupid.
What I'm talking?
Thank God they're so goddamn stupid.
Yeah, exactly. As General Zaluzhny pointed out, you can't assume that always because they are unfortunately able to do some things and cause a lot of damage. But yeah, it really is. There are an awful lot of incidents where they're breathtakingly idiotic. I mean, it's just a wonderful thing. Especially the drones, the conscripts, the lower level, they at one point, Plokhy says that, they said that some of the people, the Ukrainians, the plant, felt that the higher ups, the Russian leadership, the people higher up in the with a higher rank, that there was at least somebody to talk to in to some extent, but the people below them are just drones. They just don't know anything. They follow orders. They believe all the bullshit that they've been fed. Anyway, okay. At this point, Rosatom professors, quote unquote, are brought in by Nikolai Mulyukin, who was this guy who shows up. Heiko thought he was an FSB agent. The guy was a former major general in the Ministry of Internal Affairs. He was there not to worry about radiation. He was there to ascertain the, quote, level of radicalism of the Ukrainian personnel. Yes, and Adam, you have an addition here.
All right, he doesn't say it, but I will, in order to detain and torture them until they accept the Ruski Mir or die. Plokhy doesn't say this. He doesn't have to. He would be rather repetitive, the way I am, to say it over and over again. That's what's behind this, like, who's the Banderites? Do you have any nationalists around? And Heiko knows this, and we all know this, and it's always subtext for him, but he could beat us over the head about it a little bit. It's not all Volya Radio listeners reading this book out in the wide world, guy.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, this is the whole. I mean, this is why everyone in the plant, every Ukrainian there was under threat, because they were all under suspicion of being Ukrainian nationalists. Banderites, right? Okay. Okay. So back to Heiko running these guys around in a circle. When they brought in these so-called professors, Heiko explained to them that Chernobyl was not a standard nuclear plant, that that there were technical processes involved in monitoring that were unique. The Russian engineers who toured the plant said that it never dealt with the kind of equipment there. And they said that we do not know what to do with this. This is a functioning station with its own systems. We do not want to be responsible for it. That's he got them to exactly where he wanted them to be. They it's sort of interesting. I wonder how different the systems really were, but
Well,
he
it was
managed to convince
these
them.
are RBK reactors, and we can,
Right.
lots of valves. Like from the miniseries, which was a great representation of what that room actually looked like. I mean, if it was anyone who had been a nuclear engineer not in the 1980s, you would not know what to do with those bazillion buttons and gauges. And the
Also, they may have,
A47 button, right? Like, it's sort of, think of Homer Simpson where he sits. But I mean, that's very
exactly. And
layman about
who
it.
knows how much.
But I think Heiko's just had his was on the just had the orc mindset down pat. He bet that they either didn't know because of Russian corruption / nepotism, 2, knew but didn't want to risk being therefore wrong and punished, or 3, found Heiko's aggressive, overbearing attitude comforting in their beta orc brains and instinctively went along. Right? It might be a little bit of all 3, because they are put in this situation where they don't really know what's going on, and especially from this Soviet corruption mindset, no one wants to put their ass on the line to tell the bosses what's really going on, because then you put your ass on the line and you're the one who's going to be in the show trial, right? And we saw it.
Yeah,
We saw it
exactly.
with how the underreported radiation during the first disaster in the last book, and so many examples of the Soviet style Russian corruption ass covering. And he knows that, and he also knows that slave mindset, and better than anyone I've ever read about, to be truthful.
Yeah, no, he definitely had them down. I'm also wondering too, how much of it was, they can't admit, Russians can't admit they don't understand Ukrainian. I would imagine at this point, that the directions and labeling and everything was probably in Ukrainian. I don't was it in this book that that thing about they brought in people, they were wearing uniforms that
That's
said
in the Boots.
huh?
That's chapter 7, 8 stuff, I think.
Oh, it's farther on.
Yeah,
Okay, but
yeah.
it said Ratalnikim, I guess
Yeah,
it
the
said
Buryats didn't
it.
know it said meant funeral director, and they freaked out.
Yeah, I thought it meant funeral directors. It meant like first aid, first responders. But the word was close enough to the Russian, a word for funeral directors. and they're not going to ask. They're not going to say, what does this word mean, right? Because they're supposed to know. And the idea in this Russian Soviet way of doing things is to cover yourself and to report what your higher ups want to hear, regardless of what's actually happening. And it doesn't leave room for you to ask questions and to learn about anything. So okay, and the result of all this, they left the Ukrainians in charge because nobody else was going to take responsibility for anything. Zdenka, we keep on trying to bring you up. It's something is. I hope you'll. It's not us, in other words. Oh, okay. It looks like you're a speaker now.
Robin, it's like the old
Okay.
days, and we're stepping on the new co-host toes.
Yeah, right.
So not used to this. We can
Well,
just talk for 10 minutes after.
oh my gosh, it's 10:02. Oh, good grief. I'm sorry. Okay, listen, guys. We Snoopin and Poopin is on now with the SBU, all the good stuff. I think we got to get out of here. I'm sorry. I didn't even realize we had gone over. Thank you, Adam.
You got to go for a little bit. It's not if you got to finish up. We're not in a rush, so go ahead.
Okay, well we'll never finish up.
That's what I always
Okay,
say at work when it's taken too long. I'm not Russian. I'm Ukrainian.
Yeah, right. Like we had somebody I used to work with who was a bit of a ladies' man, and he was he was from somewhere in Eastern Europe. But a friend of mine always said he's got Russian hands and Roman fingers. Anyway, okay, but very quickly then, basically the last little part here was to say that they left the Ukrainians in charge, but tried to bribe them. They tried to say, it's over for Ukraine. Rosatom can compensate you for everything in abundance. Like offered them huge raises in salary, and not a single one took it all. To which I say, Slava Ukraini. And with that, Adam, I think we're going to say good night and hand over to Zdenka and Jeff. What do you say?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just lovely that there was no takers, and I would just say that after the propaganda failed, after that these supposed engineers who were supposed to know better than Heiko came and failed, and whether they knew or not, they did not have the guts to put their butt on the line. And then their last resort was to try and bribe the people who knew, which is just, it's like the cycle of corruption.
And it didn't work because they don't understand the difference between slaves and free people. They were trying to get the Ukrainians in the plant, the workers, to react the way the slaves would react, and they didn't. They reacted like free people, and that
I
was
feel
it.
like that's a major theme in this entire book.
Yes.
Just that sort of that slave mentality versus the giver mentality and fix it mentality of Ukrainians. All right. Let's I don't know how to say goodbye here when we're not
I
saying
know.
goodbye.
I'm
So I'm
not.
going to say hello, Zdenka.
And hi, Jeff. This is, yeah, it used to be this. It used to always, we always used to, in the old days when we were running 24/7, we never shut anything down. Now I'm not sure what to do. So I think, Adam, I'm gonna you've had a full day at work already. I'm gonna let you drop down first. We'll install one of our new co-hosts in the seat, and then we'll get going. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Adam.
Okay, yeah, no, I got to decline the co-host now. I remember how to do this. Give me a minute.
Just quickly, before we leave book club,
Yeah.
I've actually posted in the Purple Pill a pretty interesting new podcast from the BBC. It's called The Bomb. Currently, they're airing the third series, which is about the Cuban Missile Crisis. And it's the granddaughter of Khrushchev and the nephew of Kennedy. Actually are speaking in this podcast. I've listened to a couple of episodes already. It's super, super interesting because it's about like a standoff between the US and the Soviet Union during a very critical time. And I think there are lots of parallels to what is happening today. So check out the link at the bottom. Oh, and
Sure, thank you.
Serhii Plokhy is also interviewed a couple of times throughout.
Oh, terrific. Thanks. Yeah, I definitely. Yeah, everybody take a look at that. That sounds really interesting. And with that, I'm going to shuffle on off. Thanks, everybody. And see you next week. Slava Ukraini.
Here I'm Slava.
Here, I'm Slava. Can I tell you, it's been really hard not to touch you off and just drop you because just to make me laugh.
Yeah, well, you would. Yeah, I would have gotten you if you did. So good thing you didn't. See you later, guys. Bye.
Hey, thanks. Hey, welcome everybody. While we get Zdenka in the seat here, to the new hour of Snoopin and Poopin. For about the next hour, we'll cover kind of a weekly recap of news from the SBU and the HOOR. We actually do have a couple stories that kind of tie in well with the book club because there's a lot of threats to Ukrainians' energy and power sector and some threats to the nuclear side of that. Some threats that were, I guess, documented by the HOOR. So we'll kind of cover that a little bit. But hello, Zdenka. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm good. I'm just trying to stuff the nest. It's a sunny day here in Melbourne. It's a bit strange adapting to this time because I've been working, so I've been just juggling and juggling my time.
I'm in the southeast of the U.S. and apparently a big snow or ice storm is going to hit. And I thought I was going to be early and go to the grocery today, and it was a madhouse. That place is going to be the storm's not coming until Saturday, and it's already running low on supplies. Let's just say so. I didn't act like a madman and take all the toilet paper, but some people were. It's ridiculous.
Well, I wish you well when the storm arrives. That's scary.
Yeah.
Jeff, how's the supply of kale? Yeah, like
I don't know.
I know that sounds absolutely nuts, but it is one of the first things that grocery stores run out of in the Portland area when there is a crisis like this. They run out of freaking kale.
Where I live, it's probably more like Bush Light or something like that would be a leading indicator, maybe. No, it's probably milk and eggs and bread, probably. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not a prolific shopper, so my radar's not tuned to that very well, Prince. But it would make sense though for Portlandia kale to go first. I get that. Let's see. As Zdenka, we got a kind of a half stuffed nest. That's pretty exciting. So, with that being said, should we kick it off, Zdenka? What do you think?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Yes, please. I'm just actively stuffing. I'll be back with you shortly.
Okay, great. So first we'll go through the, again, kind of weekly recap. We'll start off with the SBU, kind of covers some of their counterintelligence and law enforcement work. The first one was they put out a press release that basically they're qualifying all Russian strikes on Ukraine's energy sector as crimes against humanity. And so they're basically documenting, everything for probably presentation to maybe international courts for war crimes against humanity. In the press release, they say they've documented 256 air attacks by the Russians on energy facilities and heat supply in the country. Just since the beginning of October, they have purposely attacked 11 hydroelectric power plants and 45 of the largest thermal power plants in the country. Carried out 49 pinpoint airstrikes on thermal power plants and 151 on various electrical substations throughout Ukraine. Some of these were obviously complex attacks using drones, cruise, and ballistic missiles. Let's see. And tonight, I'll just read the ISW report, and I'll just kind of give you a snapshot of where Kyiv is right now. President Zelensky reported that Russian strikes against Ukrainian infrastructure has left 60% of Kyiv without electricity and still about 4,000 buildings in the city without heat as of the morning of January 21st. Mayor Klitschko says about 600,000 people have left Kyiv in January. One of the things they've had to do was the authorities have had to drain the city's large centralized heating and water systems to prevent the water from freezing and bursting the pipes. Let's see. Sources. So obviously, and this is part of the Russians' larger strategy to basically turn Kyiv into an uninhabitable city by damaging the morale of all Ukrainians. Of course, they're fighting back. I know Klitschko has talked about they've been making Herculean efforts trying to get a lot of their power and heat back on, but still it's a tough situation. And so I think that does tie into the let me pull it up. The report that the HUR put out, I'll just scroll down to that real quick, about they reported this week about the Russians' threat to the nuclear power supply. I think maybe they were talking about that a little bit in the book club. Just a second. Sorry. Okay, yeah. On 17 January, the HUR put out a report about the threat to Ukraine's nuclear power plants. Said that Russia is actively planning strikes intended to disconnect Ukraine from its 3 remaining nuclear power plants by attacking substations that are connecting to the power plants in both western and southern Ukraine. So these attacks could target the high voltage transmission infrastructure to cripple the energy grid and force capitulation. And I don't think people are aware that, even today, that those remaining nuclear power plants still provide around 50% of the electrical power to Ukraine. So obviously, if those were hit, that would be another crime against humanity, let's say. But we already know from the previous many months they've been kind of dicking around with the control of who controls the power coming off the Zaporizhzhia Nuclear Power Plant. So just interesting that the HUR put that out this week. So any thoughts on that, Zdenka? Or
Yeah, so the power supply to the Chernobyl nuclear power plant has actually been hit twice in the last week or so. It's really, really dangerous. Like DTEC are very quick to repair it, and they do have, of course, diesel generators. But it's really dangerous because they also have cooling ponds for used rods, nuclear material. So I believe that there's like used material at other nuclear power plants as well. So it's horrific if it's going to cut off,
Yeah.
desperately needed energy, but, it's also maintaining the state of the reactors and also the spent fuel containers.
Right. And they they have those backup generators, but they're not designed to be obviously a permanent solution. And it's a backup for a reason. So, yeah. Let's see. So I guess moving on from that, the next kind of tranche of SBU cases, I kind of put them together. Zdenka was a lot of the kind of fraud and draft evasion type of cases that they were able to interdict. This was kind of interesting because usually there's one or two of these a week, and it seemed like there were more this week. And I don't know if that has to do with General Budanov taking over the chief of staff role, and that was one of the things he put out initially was kind of putting more confidence into the mobilization system to kind of fix some holes in the entire system, not just the actual stuff happening with draft evasion, but the whole system, and with Fedorov taking over the defense minister role with his kind of background in digital transformation. I'm curious to see how that's going to play into some of the let's say draft evasion and both like draft officials on the take, and hopefully they can put some audit controls into that will prevent some of this stuff. But let's just go through a few of these cases. And again, there's usually one or two a week that we'll cover, but the first one they put out was on 15 January. Both the SBU and the National Police, they said they exposed another 9 draft dodging schemes throughout Ukraine. Sorry, and let me pull up that real quick.
I have it opened.
Okay, yeah. First one, they said in Kyiv. This guy he was the leader of a ring that was organizing an interregional channel for illegal crossing. Basically, he was just taking bribes, and they would pull up all the guys and take them in various cars to the border with doesn't say which country, but it says an EU country. Basically, sneaking them beyond the checkpoints. So they arrested that one guy. They're currently searching to bring the other participants to justice. Zdenka, the other one was, let's see, in the Cherkasy region. This was a deputy dean of one of the universities was detained. He was arranging bribes to basically get false registration or student status to evaders to study at her university. They weren't attending. They were just bribing her and basically getting deferments out of the draft. So that's a common one with fake student deferments, and then also fictitious medical certificates. Let's see. That was in the same region, selling fictitious medical certificates, and then involving members of the territorial recruitment centers, using the medical officers there to, I guess, provide the official medical certificates. Same thing in the Poltava region, out in the west, Ivano-Frankivsk region. Let's see, same thing for evasive schemes to transport conscripts to neighboring European countries, bypassing checkpoints. This was interesting. A foreign trucker was transporting evaders across the border in luggage compartments of his truck. And let's see, so on and so forth on that one, Zdenka.
going back, it was actually 2 employees of the recruitment centre who were organising those transfers of conscripts to the European Union
Okay.
in
Yeah.
Ivano-Frankivsk region.
Gotcha. The next one was more specifically, they uncovered, so they raided a local TCC, which is their mobilization center. This was in the Dnipropetrovsk region. During the raid, they uncovered $300,000 US. This was from the head of the Military Medical Commission, the MMC. The fictitious medical certificates were going for $2,500 US a pop. This was a 58-year-old woman from the MMC, and her accomplice from the associated TCC were arrested, and they face up to 10 years in prison with confiscation of property if they're found guilty. And again, reading about these Zdenka, I was thinking that surely, they can put in, once some of this digital transformation happens, I'm sure they could put in some kind of controls to reduce this. They're not going to be able to ever get rid of it all. People are always going to be able to find a way, but if they can put those controls in, it will at least give the general population more better fidelity.
So what do you mean? There's better digital tracking, or do you mean other people need to also sign off on it? Like if it's left to just one medical head of a corrupt medical head.
I mean, they could put some kind of audits in that, hey, this one doctor seems to be signing off on a lot of disability certificates. You know what I mean? Or it has to be signed off by somebody else, or just like you would with any large organization. If it's just left to people, just the human element, that's always going to be more exploitable. I think. But we'll see. But the key is that General Budanov, they've identified it as a problem, and they're looking to attack it. This is just one aspect of it. I think there's a lot of things. Improving training will help with that, and just the fair and equitable distribution of conscripts, and there's a lot of other things that can be brought up, but this is just one aspect, and it's certainly one thing that the SBU is involved with helping clean up, I guess.
So I guess just a quick remark. If there are a lot of medical certificates in any particular region, that's an indicator that could be following up now.
Yeah, and I think I talked with Will last week, but being able to maybe bounce, database, different silos of databases off each other, as far as ensuring that if you're required by law to register, if you're between the ages of 18 and 60 as a male, that you're in that system, and it bounces off of other systems to ensure that the fraud's not happening. The big thing is that that the population has confidence in everything, in the system, that they know that just the people with money aren't able to buy their way out of it, and that'll help to restore confidence and help with the manpower situation. I think, at least. Let's see. And then they announced on the 20th of January another 7 draft dodging schemes, and this was interesting. Was an ex-MP from the banned Party of Regions was successfully avoiding conscription by basically getting a fake employment status as the head of the legal department of a communal institution. And he was given a deferment for mobilization. So, fake employment can, certain jobs can basically get yourself deferred from being mobilized. So that was busted up. I'm sure the Party of Regions is not too popular in Ukraine. Let's see.
There's actually like a list of cases for this one. It also says that up to $13,000 was paid. We said before that up to $2,500 was paid for a medical certificate, but in that prior press release, they also said up to $25,000 was paid. So there's a lot of money changing hands for these people who are wanting to avoid mobilization.
Yeah, and then they showed in the picture, I think from that one was the medical personnel from the MMC. Had just a whole raft of fake a military unit stamps, and just to be able to forge the documents correctly. So it looked like they were busted up kind of a well running scheme there. So I see we got Brian has joined. Brian, do you have your hand up?
Yeah, this is an interesting discussion, and it makes you wonder if the SBU has some sort of subspecialization where they assign specific people to stare at this topic, right? Evasion of mobilization, falsifying credentials to try to get out of serving. It just seems like that this is happening enough where I don't know if they have the luxury of maybe it's just whoever's free when the case comes up, but it just seems like that there would be a unit just like Law and Order SVU here in the U.S., right, where they focus on a specific type of infraction or set of infractions.
Yeah, I don't know specifically, Brian. I think they do. I think the SVU does have a military counterintelligence. So I don't know if that's the unit. I know that in a lot of these cases it does mention that the SBU along with the national police. So yeah, I don't know exactly how they attack it. I'm assuming that they do, Brian. But that'd be something I need to maybe look up a little further, I guess. Zdenka?
Oh, I have nothing to add. Yes, often these cases are run together with the police or the prosecutor general.
Yeah. Oh, let's see. So the next one, they announced the next one, 21 January. The SBU, along with the Office of the Prosecutor General, exposed. This was the first deputy head of one of Kyiv district's state administrations. This was basically taking kickbacks for fictitiously enrolling clients and military units of the AFU, and then would later organize their write-offs from military registration on fictitious medical diagnoses. These could run up to $15,000 to $20,000. Let's see. During the searches, the detainees were found to have forged medical and military registration documents. Oh, this is the one I'm talking about. Seals of military units and smartphones had the evidence of their scheme. So this was a public administrator within some local region of Kyiv. There was taking $15,000 to $20,000 bribes to get people off the hook from conscription. So. He's facing some jail time there if convicted. So we'll move on from that topic, Zdenka. But it was interesting that after Bunov took his new job, that mentioned that was a priority to do that. That a lot of these cases they're maybe publicizing them more. I don't know, but it was interesting. So moving on to some of the more counter-orc type of cases. Let's see. The first one was on 16 January. Detained 2 Russian GRU agents preparing bomber drones for attacks on Odessa. This was a 49-year-old local businessman were recruited on Telegram for the promise of easy money, and he's also able to recruit his friend in the scheme. They were preparing attacks on AFU soldiers that were deployed in the region using so-called, they say drops, but basically preparing bombs from a civilian quadcopter to attack Ukrainian soldiers. They were caught while they were preparing their quadcopter, loaded with 2 kilograms of explosive after they had confirmed their target with their GRU handler. So 2 kilogram explosive from a civilian quadcopter. It's pretty big. It's a pretty big drop. Let's see. So they were caught. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, it sounds enormous. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's about what, 5 pounds for people that don't speak kilogram fluently. So they were caught with a quadcopter with explosives, Kalashnikov assault rifle, 2 Makarov pistols with cartridges, an F1 combat grenade, and other weapons were seized from the suspects. They've been charged with treason committed under martial law, and they face life in prison if convicted. So that was in the Odessa region. Let's see. The next case, 16 January, the SBU, along with the Prosecutor General's office, exposed a dealer. This was the CEO of a Zaporizhzhia company who supplied the armed forces with defective ballistic goggles worth nearly 60 million hryvnias, which is approximately 1.4 million US dollars. So basically, defense procurement fraud there that they're going after there. So that's pretty pretty shameful. I mean, your defective combat gear, maybe they don't know until it's defective, and obviously it could cause unneeded injuries or deaths. So pretty heinous fraud there that they were able to bust up. Go ahead.
So are they just very hardened? Do they have hardened lenses so that they can withstand any sort of projectiles?
Yeah, I would assume probably like shrapnel type of things. Obviously with drones being one of the biggest threats on the battlefield. That shrapnel. I mean, they're probably not going to stop a 7.62 millimeter bullet, but help protect the eyes for any kind of shrapnel. I would assume, Zdenka.
Okay, and it was 43,000 pairs of protective ballistic goggles and goggle masks.
Wow. Yeah. So who knows when they discovered that? I mean, hopefully it was discovered before it had been distributed, and hopefully not due to it being defective. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, good. Good. That bastard was innocent until proven guilty. But yeah, go ahead.
It actually sounds like they were paid. So it sounds like the company was paid, and they delivered these faulty goods. During searches of the defendant's workplace, documents containing evidence of the criminal scheme and part of the money received from its implementation were discovered. The entire batch of defective goods has been removed from the Defence Forces logistic warehouses and contractor offices, and the perpetrators face up to 12 years in prison.
Oh, good. Yeah. So
it sounds like it might not have gotten out of the warehouses. However, the company was paid, so they must have to extract the money from them now.
Yeah. Well, that's good. Let's see. 20 January, SBU detained an agent of the GRU who was preparing caches of explosives for terrorist attacks in 4 different regions of Ukraine. So again, they arrested the guy, GRU agent, who was preparing the caches for further on attacks in both Kyiv, Chernobyl, Uman, and Odessa. They had planned to take the material from these caches to make IEDs to blow up vehicles of the defense forces. They arrested a 55-year-old former law enforcement officer from the Odessa region. So that's pretty shameful. Former law enforcement officer. He was adding remote detonators to 3 IEDs based off of the plastiques and electric detonators, as well as he had 2 anti-personnel mines that he was moving to another cache for the GRU agents. He is being charged with high treason and faces life imprisonment if convicted. So that's good. Again, we've seen cases like this in the past. Yeah, the GRU and the FSB's setting up these various caches from the explosives and anti-personnel mines, and then getting other people to access these caches to make smaller IEDs out of them. So it's good that they were able to catch this one before it, I guess, proliferated.
It's quite scary because, I mean, terrorist attacks in 4 different regions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we've seen, over the December, they killed, I believe, a police officer, maybe a soldier, and right in the middle of Kyiv, with a remotely controlled IED. So it happened several times. So it's
and they blew up the defender's car in the car park. He didn't die, but he must be quite badly wounded.
Yeah,
that happened a couple of weeks ago as well.
Yeah, exactly. The next one was interesting. And I haven't really seen this widely publicized, but President Zelensky did mention it in one of his addresses. I think it was yesterday on the 20th of January. He did announce that the SBU has captured a Russian soldier who they believe was responsible for the execution of 9 Ukrainian soldiers in the Kursk region, which happened in October of 2024. Let me pull up the article, Zdenka. But
I might just read from the Euromaidan press tweet. It's actually in the NES.
Okay.
So the Ukrainian soldiers were in Kursk. They had surrendered after running out of ammunition. Drone footage later confirmed the mass execution. It's a rare moment of accountability. Ukraine has actually documented 268 prisoner of war executions since the full-scale invasion commenced, and only 2 Russians have been convicted.
And that, that's. I mean, it goes more. And we've covered, also in the past, of a lot of their radio intercepts that the HERS picked up, as far as picking up radio intercepts where commanders are basically ordering lower level soldiers to basically commit battlefield executions. So it's not just we know it's not just rogue soldiers that is being ordered. It's systemic, and it's part of their war criminal nature. And so fortunately, maybe one more of these Cretans is brought to justice, but there's definitely a lot more of them out there. But good on the SBU for capture. I don't know how they captured them or where, it doesn't say, but to be able to identify who that was from back in October of 2024 is pretty good detective work by them, in my opinion. So we got Brian.
We don't know the specifics of how they were discovered, but it's just, I don't want to say funny, but it's just interesting how consistently these Russian soldiers publicize and talk about what they do and video it, and them talking about what they did, and intercepts of communications where identifying specific people, because we saw that a lot in Bucha, right? Early on in the war, in the invasion, in the full-scale invasion, where people, they unidentified specific units that were involved, the commander of that unit, and but these people these soldiers, after they commit these heinous acts, they go and talk about it. So you can do facial recognition, maybe read into sort of triangulating information. Okay, this is who this person is,
right?
And And so I don't think they got any smarter since the beginning of the full-scale invasion. They probably still blab whenever they do these horrific things. And then the Ukrainians are very good at intercepts and signal intelligence to kind of, find them out. And then, if they have the opportunity to kill them or capture them, and as it's in this case, then they're going to take advantage of it. And the Russians are not going to get any less stupid about talking about the stuff that they do.
Yeah, that's a great point, Brian. Yeah, definitely. They're definitely very good at it. Zdenka.
I was just going to say that two things. They had advanced in Kursk. They thought they were safe, but then realized that they weren't. So I don't know. I wonder whether it speaks to poor communication. Was it during that time when, intel was cut off? The other thing is there is actually a UN report mentioned in this Euromaidan article. So the UN conducted an independent international commission of inquiry into Ukraine. They published a report on the 19th of March 2025. And it was actually based on the testimony of Russian deserters. So they actually have they've confirmed 79 of that much larger number of executions. And yeah, so they've actually documented some of these crimes that hopefully will lead to convictions if the perpetrators are ever caught.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point too, Zdenka. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that all the POWs that they're able to get, I'm sure they're debriefing them and interrogating them as to gathering intelligence off those guys as well. So that's a great point. Let's see. The next one was 21, or just today they announced. And this, Brian, this gets to your point. You're asking about specific units, but it says the military counterintelligence of the SBU and the National Police arrested a perpetrator of an attempted contract killing of a Ukrainian soldier in Zaporizhzhia. This was it was attempted on a Ukrainian officer who was undergoing medical rehabilitation in the area. He was lured to an industrial zone by a so-called date via a fake dating profile on a dating app. And while he was
okay, we've heard this before. We've seen this movie before.
Yeah, it's a common tactic, I guess. But I guess while en route to the meetup spot, he was attacked by a balaclava-clad hitman acting for the FSB. He was stabbed 6 times from behind. He's currently in serious condition. The SBU found the 25-year-old male attacker, so it wasn't a female, obviously fake profile, but they found the attacker a few hours later. And again, this guy was recruited from Telegram, just looking for easy money, and he faces life imprisonment. So, wounded soldier back in the front line, looking to meet up with the young lady. Let's just say, maybe go on a good date, and bastard stabs him 6 times in the back. So he deserves every bit of prison he gets.
Actually, the wounds were all over the place: neck, back, leg. Yeah, so he was attacked from behind with a knife. They found the knife, and he's in ICU. Unfortunately.
I mean, it's when you described that many different wound points, it's a pretty vicious attack there, definitely with the knife. Has Nick, this was the kind of right before we went on. This was the SB and the National Police detained another 2 FSB agents who carried out contract arson attacks in the northern regions of Ukraine. Do you have that one up? Let's see.
No, you're doing the one from no, I don't know where you are. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I'll pull it up.
Oh.
No, I got it. Let's see. Yeah, this is today. They posted. This is the arson of cars of the defense forces and mobile communications facilities of Ukraine. Again, recruited on Telegram, easy earnings. They now face life in prison. It was a 29-year-old unemployed man who evaded mobilization and was working for the FSB. Destroyed the SUV of a AFU soldier who had recently arrived back from the front line. This was in the Kyiv area. Arrived at the parking lot of a military car in the dark, set on fire, recorded it and reported it back to the FSB. Was detained. The next one was a 22-year-old resident of Chernobyl, burning down mobile towers and some other stuff. But yeah, again, a couple idiots, traitors, recruited to turn against their country for promised paltry amount of money. So that was the last one from that side. Zdenka. Let's see. You had one sentence. This was a sentence was from an SBU investigation. An FSB was sentenced to 15 years in prison for attempting to burn down the power substation in the Kirovohrad region. It's a 21-year-old cashier at a local grocery store. This one was recruited on Telegram after he was making a bunch of pro-Kremlin comments. Was identified in the coordinates of power substations. Supplied strategically important facilities within the region. Okay, so that one got 15 years in prison. Let's see. So moving on to the SBU Alpha military activities, not a whole lot from this week that was reported. Zdenka, the big one was that they basically kind of posted a video of the Alpha guys, their drone units activity in 2025 about their neutralization of the enemy air defenses. Their claim that the stuff they destroyed was worth nearly $4 billion. So it's a lot of very expensive, valuable gear. A lot of expensive radars. Let's see. They stated their work brought a systemic effort, had a systemic effect, made corridors through the Russian integrated air defenses, their multi-layered air defenses, providing safe passages for various strike packages into both occupied Ukraine and Russia proper. We see them every night, and it's the work of SBU Alpha and the other drone units that are helping to make these corridors. And a lot of those, especially newer, more expensive radars, we see them on a weekly basis being taken out in Crimea, and obviously we see the various Ukrainian drones, cruise missiles, and whatnot able to make it through there, as well as surface attacks. They're taking out the surface radars. They're able to skim the water for the Maguras and the sea babies, allowing them to carry out their attacks. So I think, Zdenka, did you have that video in the nest? Or I'm not sure about that one, but it's a pretty lengthy video. It just kind of shows you all the different air defense assets that the SBU was able to help take out. And again, they're saying $4 billion. That's a big chunk of change. And again, some of that stuff is not able to be replaced easily. Let's just say.
I don't have it in the nest, but I will add it. So the press release just talks about a wide variety of anti-aircraft missile systems, the different S-300, 350, 400, Book M2, Pantsir S1, S2, and Tor M1, M2, and a whole range of radar systems. I'm not going to read the names, but I'll pop the video in the nest. And Wardogo was really, really proud because we're fundraising for SBU Alpha. So I'm going to pop Wardogo's tweet into the nest, celebrating $4 billion worth of damage conducted by SBU Alpha.
Awesome. This is the first warm handover, but there were also already some fundraising tweets in the nest if you want to check them out. I believe we did have one for War Dog's proactive fundraiser, supports the SBU Alpha guys as well as various units from the AFU to include the 18th Sloviansk National Guard, and a whole bunch of other units that he knows guys from he's able to supply stuff quicker than the Ukrainian supply system can catch up with, and he has relationships with those guys, so consider giving to that one. And I don't think we have up in the nest. His other fundraiser is the shotgun fundraiser. That's for Yvonne, call sign Bear, able to train defenders how to use shotguns against the FPV drone threat, both radio controlled and fiber optic guided drones. And I'll just read that one out if we don't have it. You can go to givebutter.com /shotgun to get to that one, or to his proactive one, same thing, givebutter.com /proactive, and you can get to that War Doggo fundraiser. Go ahead, Zdenka.
I was just going to add that the proactive fundraiser is trying to raise money for the 18th National Guard's new training centre. So they need to buy a whole lot of electronic warfare equipment so that they can conduct more training. They still have $1,100 to go before they can complete the purchase of the EW equipment that they need. War Doggo posted that 10 hours ago. So if there's anything that you could do to donate to the proactive fundraiser to help close off the purchase of electronic equipment for the 18th National Guard, that would be great. The other thing is the shotgun fundraiser has actually been static. There's actually been no movement for 2 weeks. So that's at 59% of its $10,000 target. So I know there are a lot of needs in Ukraine right now, especially with regard to heating. But if you have spare cash, please consider both of those.
Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, and you can make a one-time donation, or or you can make a recurring monthly donation that helps them plan. Hopefully, I mean, you can set it up for $5, $10, or whatever. So just think about doing that if you can. So moving on, Zdenka, into the first one I want to cover just real quick. It's not necessarily a horror story, but it does relate. Was this you found this one was a story of basically the FSB nuns. The Belarusian nuns. It's an article in the UK's The Telegraph. Really interesting article. For those not familiar, and I bring it up in the context of the Snoopin and Poopin, because the SBU does, over the last year has busted many of the priests and officials of the UOC Moscow Patriarch Church, which is just a extension of the Russian Orthodox Church. And this was a story about the St. Elizabeth Convent from Belarus. Were allowed access into Sweden. Let's see, an affluent suburb near Stockholm. The local Church of Sweden had given them access. And the Church of Sweden is a Lutheran church. I had to look that one up. But they've given these nuns, these little old nuns from Belarus, some access to some space, and they're basically selling little trinkets and stuff to raise money, supposedly the poor back in Belarus, but it was actually being funneled back to Russia, to their military industrial complex. But Znika, they got the nickname the Z nuns. Did you see that? Because these nuns had been photographed with arm or let's say military style vest in the occupied territories. They're active promoters of the war against Ukraine. So it's all part of Russia's overall hybrid war campaign. And we continuously we see this here in the States, where they're making lobbying efforts on certain congressional members from the the Russian Orthodox Church, about how they're being persecuted in Ukraine and all this bullshit. And it goes back to last week, Zdenka brought up that General Maliuk from the outgoing SBU chief did bring up that one of the highlights of his tenure, he said, was busting all these FSB agents in priest robes, which was specifically referring to the UOC MP church. So did you have something to add to that one, Zdenka? I thought it was an interesting article, definitely.
Super interesting. So these Z Patriot nuns, you can see some of their faces in the Toronto television tweet up in the nest. Yep, so they've got their normal habits, and then one's flying a Russian flag with a big Z on it, another one's chatting to someone with Z on their cars. Yes, and you can see the trinkets and stuff that they have sold to make money for the Russia's genocidal campaign.
Yeah, and then I think also in the article it did mention about it was either the Swedish government or Swedish church. I believe it was the government, but basically they were using the Church of Sweden, allowing some of these so-called Russian Orthodox churches to get space near, let's say sensitive government and military or sensitive installations around Sweden. So obviously probably using this for spy bases, which it's obviously a coordinated strategic campaign with how they're doing it. And you see this here in the West, how they're using propaganda. They get these guys on or supporters of theirs with Tucker Carlson and those types of crowds to be able to influence the information space. So it's definitely coordinated.
And I don't know if you recall, about a week ago, there were also some nuns thrown out of Estonia. So there was some nuns from the Orthodox Church that prays to the Moscow Patriarchy. They were also found to be doing similar stuff, raising funds for the Russian army. And their Schengen visas were cancelled, and I think they've been expelled from Estonia.
Yeah, good. Yeah, so hopefully, Western governments are taking notice of that and taking action against that. Let's see. The next one from the HUR was on 20 January, so just yesterday, and this was found in the ISW report. It says that and take from it what you will, but the HUR has noted that the Russian forces are using training missiles to strike ground targets in Ukraine, possibly by equipping them with live warheads. Ukrainian sources reported that Russian forces struck ground targets in Ukraine with an RM-48U surface-to-air training missile for the first time on January 19th to the 20th, which Ukrainian sources characterize as an quote ersatz ballistic missile. So we know that they're lobbing. They have used S-300, S-400 missiles as kind of stand-in surface-to-surface ballistic missiles. So now they're using some of their training missiles in this role, and they believe that these are decommissioned old S-300, S-400 air defense missiles. So make of that what you will, but they're pulling decommissioned training missiles out of their stockpile. So I don't know if that means they're low on them or I don't know, but it's interesting. So maybe keep an eye on that. If they're having to dip into old missiles that they're now only using for training purposes, but maybe that's what they're using when we see these videos of some of these S-300, S-400 missiles going stupid after launch and attacking their own cities. So maybe that's where that comes from, Zdenka. I don't know.
That's a thought.
Yeah,
That's interesting. Yeah. Because we actually have an intercepted call from a Belgorod resident about the quality of the anti-aircraft missiles being fired there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a reason when something gets so old, you decommission it. You don't intend to bring those back unless there's a problem with making new ones. Maybe I would say I don't know. Brian.
Didn't a few years ago there was a video of a air defense missile? Was it an air defense missile or a MLRS where they fired and the munition came back around and well, it was a surface-to-air missile, where they fired it and then the missile went off into the air and then it turned around and came back to where it was and blew up the launcher. Do you remember that?
I can't remember which one, Brian. I think there might have been a few of those. I don't know. Remember that specific one, but Will's giving a thumbs up. So, yeah, but we saw that, and we've seen it in several cities. Well, I mean, just the other day there was one that where was that? In somewhere in southern Russia that did the same thing. You see it get launched, and you see the plume, and then immediately it gets stupid and makes a 180. So that's probably not a good.
Those are my favorites.
That's probably not a good feeling when you launch it and you're on that cruise. And maybe they'll add that to their procedures after the step after.
Yeah, after you fire, run away.
Just run.
take cover until you know that the missile is actually not going to come back on and put a warhead on your own forehead instead of somebody else's forehead.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Sort of like your counter battery radar by eyeball.
Yeah, there you go. Made by Acme, the company Acme, maybe.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Let's see the next one. The Hur did put out a press release or a tweet pretty soon after this story came out. This is on the 19th of January. I think everybody remembers. There was a story going around. I think it was first published in French media, Zdenka. Correct me if I'm wrong, but and then
yes, French TV. Yep.
Yeah, and then it was getting spread, but and it got debunked by the Center for Countering Disinformation, I believe. But then the Hur, the story was from the French media source was that the Hur was putting out false information to the U.S. intelligence officials to see if that would get boomeranged back to Russia. And Hur basically put out, no, that this is disinformation probably put out there by the Russians to further a wedge between U.S. cooperation with Ukraine. So that was debunked by that Center for what's the official name, Zdenka? I'm drawing.
Countering Center for Countering Disinformation. Yeah. It was actually retweeted by Hur rather than Hur putting out their own press release.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But yeah, that was that was it initially started to spread, and then it got tamped down pretty quickly. So the next one, Zdenka, was one you were talking about, was an intercept by the Hur, I believe, of civilians speaking in the Belgorod region. Let's see, this was the testimony of a resident, from Belgorod, right there on the border with Ukraine, about the location of their BM-21 Grad MLRS systems. They were placed directly near residential buildings. We've seen this with their with their SAM systems. They do it. They put them right next to, in the middle of the cities. Put this stuff right next to residential areas. But the intercept, Zdenka, and I don't know if this was translated that well, but the translation was, our troops were going there to Pizarivka about 10 o'clock with hail. I looked out the window. There were such stripes. These are the same red ones. But I think that's meant to show that, the Russians are putting these artillery systems right next to their residents' houses, which shows how much they care for their citizens, right? Because they know there's potentially counter battery fire is going to be put onto where these rockets are coming from, potentially, or counter battery drone strikes, let's say. And so the Hur goes on to say that what does it say here? In my opinion, I don't care.
It's hinting that the Russian soldiers don't want to drive their MLRS systems into the mud. So they're actually
Oh, yeah.
choosing to place the MLRS systems next to buildings because
Yeah.
roads.
So they don't care about their civilian population, and they're just lazy, probably, I guess.
Mm.
Yeah. But the Horde, they put one out last week. It is pretty interesting. They put out these intercepts of just regular Russian citizens speaking to maybe kind of highlight, I guess, maybe what just the normal people in those regions, what their sentiment is, I guess. Let's see. So I think we didn't really have much reported by the Horde militarily wise. They did put out something about them conducting. I don't have it bookmarked or anything, but they conducted some kind of reconnaissance behind the lines there in the Liman area, which is in the vicinity of Sloviansk. We know that's a contested area right now. So I think it was the Artan unit. That was the only thing that I saw. It is of note, today they did put out a post about their new chief, Lieutenant General Ivashenko, made a working trip down to the Zaporizhzhia front. And he met with the commander of the group of forces down there and with commanders of relevant military units to discuss the current situation on the battlefield and analyze enemies' plans and intentions, and identified ways probably for the HUR's units to deepen their interaction with the AFU commanders down there. So we know that the HUR, their direct action units work hand in hand with the AFU units as well. So that's good to see that coordination going. And then our next post, Zdenka, we have a couple from the HUR's War and Sanctions portal, and then a few stories of kind of miscellaneous human interest stories. The one from the War and Sanctions portal, and that link went dead to me today, so I don't know if they're having problems. I'll just read it out real quick. If we're not able to or I don't know if you got it in the purple pill, Zdenka.
No, the link's not working today. So it worked for me last night, but it's not working
Yeah.
today.
Yeah, I'll just read it out if you're just listening. It's war-sanctions.gur.gov.ua. That'll get you to the portal. They post some interesting things on a weekly basis. The two things they posted this week, and we talked about this one a little bit last week, was they noted they found a crashed or shot down new version of a so-called Garan. It's called the Garan 5, and it's more of a cruise missile looking design than the traditional Shahed type Garan 2, Garan 3s that we're familiar with. This is more of a traditional cruise missile looking cylindrical shape with the turbojet mounted on the top, with the small winglets in the back. But so it has a further range. But they found one, like I said, it was either crashed or shot down on the territory, and they've analyzed it, and now they've published a 3D model of it on the War and Sanctions portal, so you can take a look at that. The one thing we noted last week is they had noted that it's probably not in serial production at this time, so it might have been kind of testing it out at this point, but haven't seen too many of them. But they've posted like I said, a 3D model with all the components of that model that they can identify, and that they've also posted, let's see, the Russian UAVs, the Grand 2s, the Zala T-20s, and the KH-32 surface attack cruise missile have been published. Let's see, and then the next thing they published just today was both the design bureaus and enterprises involved in the production of the Iskander-K cruise missiles. They identified the main enterprise is Novator Research and the design bureau of Almaz Anti. They identified 39 more Russian and one Belarusian enterprise that manufactures the warhead, the turbojet engine and its components, and both satellite and inertial navigation systems. And then they go on to state that 8 out of these 41 companies are still not under sanctions, which is surprising. But so they've been named. So hopefully they are working with their allies and partners to get those enterprises on the sanctions list. And one was, I'll just read 3 of them. The Tambov plant manufactures the inertial navigation systems. Let's see. I'm not going to read it, but it's a JSC joint stock company. Vysoky Technology manufactures.
Vysoky technology.
Oh, there you go.
High technologies. Yeah.
Just flaunt my poor pronunciation, Zdenka. I'm just kidding. They manufacture parts of the turbojet engines for the Iskander K, and then the Volga electromechanical plant supplies components for the active jamming stations on the cruise missile. So again, 8 out of the 41 companies that make components for the Iskander K are currently not under sanctions. So hopefully that's being remedied, let's just say. And then Zdenka, I think we're getting close to the end. We'll just go through a couple stories here of human interest and miscellaneous. During this last week, they did note the Day of Remembrance of the Defenders of Donetsk Airport. And for those that aren't familiar, that was, let me pull down here, happened back in 2014. From the Hur side, it wasn't just the Hur involved. It was many different elements of both volunteers and members of the AFU, Armed Forces of Ukraine at the time. But in May of 2014, a group of Hur officers, along with the other, the Hur officers were under the command of a legendary officer. He's now a hero of Ukraine, Maxim Shapoval. They were one of the first to enter the airport territory with a fight. And again, this is back in May of 2014. It's a legendary defense of the Donetsk International Airport. It lasted for 242 days, where they were basically surrounded. 242 days they held out. Their fierce battles, and just it's a storied battle within amongst the Ukrainians, and those defenders are known as the cyborgs. In the Facebook post, it says "Honor and glory to the cyborgs." Let's see. It goes on to say, let's see. And just a quick note, the officer that led the Hur contingent of those defenders was actually killed by an FSB car bomb in Kyiv on June 27th of 2017. And he at the time, so killed on June 27th, was posthumously promoted on 30th of June from Colonel Maxim Mykolaievich, Shapoval Maxim Mykolaievich, to the rank of Major General. And then further on the 7th of September 2017, Major General Mykolaievich was awarded the Golden Star Order of Hero of Ukraine for courage and heroism displayed in the protection of state sovereignty and territorial integrity of Ukraine, for his considerable contributions to strengthening state defense capability and security. So a hero of Ukraine, unfortunately killed by a terrorist car bomb, which we kind of talked about some of those plots they uncovered in the week's roundup tonight. Anything more you want to say on that one, Zdenka?
No. Should we just cover off on some of Budanov's words at Davos?
Yes, please. Yeah, please. That was very interesting. Do you want to read it, or I can?
How about if I read it?
Okay. Go for it.
So Budanov gave there was a panel discussion at Davos, I guess yesterday. It was called The Way to Peace in Ukraine by Force or Consent. So Budanov said, first of all, we have to soberly evaluate reality. Today we are going through the bloodiest war since 1945. I hope we're still on a path to a radical decision. We are moving forward. And while it would be false to promise that peace will come tomorrow, the efforts are being made to do so are enormous. If the situation we are in were to be clearly defined, I would use the term restrained optimism. Do you want to tic-tac-toe, Jeff, and do the next bit?
Just 1 second. Let's see. Where'd you?
Many are talking about the fact that Ukraine should have a place at the negotiating table. We're actually a work in progress, and this process is not happening without us. In particular, we have had serious work with representatives of Donald Trump's team.
Sorry, I was in the background for a second. Okay, I got it. Yeah. So then he goes on to say, yeah, we understand that it is impossible to talk to Russia from a weak position. Therefore, we are critically in need of further unity and help of partners, from armaments to political influence of communities. The worms between partners only play into the hands of the enemy. And he says, regarding Russia itself, he says its 12-year-old rhetoric about the so-called NATO threat remains the main excuse of their aggression. However, during this time, the Russians themselves drove themselves into another trap. The stronger the sanction pressure became, the more Russia fell into China's hands. So he's taking a big dig at Russia there. It says, now we see the actual absorption of the Russian Federation by China. Yes, Beijing has not handed over a single unit of ready armament to Russia. That's a fact. Yet they skillfully use Russia's weakness, absorbing it economically and amplifying their political influence. Russians understand it, and it hurts them. And side note, I think we've talked about that, especially in the Far East there, increasingly asserting economic dominance in those areas. So I found that a pretty good dig from Budanov. But to get back to his talk, he says, our task is to accumulate all the strength, mobilize and bring the matter to an end. We need not just to end the war, but peace, security guarantee, and a clear plan of rebuilding Ukraine. So definitely a much powerful speaker at Davos than some others, let's just say. So he's always very, very on point with his words, Zdenka.
We'll probably be hearing more from him, but I think I found that quite interesting. That was posted by Huru on Facebook.
Awesome. The only thing you had was about the book that we had talked about before. Do we want to cover that or wrap it up, or?
You might as well. Oh, that was for your interest, because I know you want to read the book.
Oh yeah.
No, tell everybody about it.
Oh yeah, I'll just mention it again. But so there's a book that was put out by an author by the name of he's an author and a new voice of Ukraine journalist by the name of Maxim Buchenko, and it's put out by Yakobu Publishing, which is a Ukrainian publisher. But the book it's already been released, I believe, back in November. The book is called, it's only out in Ukrainian, so I'm waiting for it to come out in English or wait until my Ukrainian gets better. But the title of the book is called Hur Island, Secrets, Operations, and War. And he's basically chronicled a lot of the kind of once top secret type of missions that have now been kind of declassified, I guess. The Beefeater did put out a tweet to highlight one of the stories, which is just crazy. Is the Hur did a large jet ski raid. Really got me wanting to read the book. But Hur Island is actually the name of where their headquarters is at in Kyiv, Zanika. I think we talked about that before. It's like a little island that sits right there and on the Dnipro. I guess it's probably not totally an island, but it might seem like one. But that's Hur Island. Secrets, Operations, and War. So
there's an article, somebody did a book review, and there's actually a whole lot of stories from the book. So maybe we could cover one of those stories each week. Did you want to cover the one in Beefeater's tweet? It's actually up in the nest.
okay, yeah, I'll pull it up right now. Sorry. Give me 1 second. Got it. Yeah, Beefeater put this out from the book in November, and Zdenka's got it in the nest. But I'll just read through his tweet that it's relaying a story from the book where 14 Hur fighters rode jet skis 200 kilometers across the sea to attack Russians in Crimea. In October of 2023, 14 fighters from the Hur, a part of the Hur called Ukraine's Brotherhood, part of the Timur group, carried out an operation that even experienced sailors and special forces considered suicidal. They used ordinary jet skis, typically used for rides 10 to 15 kilometers from shore, to cover 200 kilometers across open sea, landed in occupied Crimea, attacked a strategically important Russian radar station, and returned back. The operation was led by call sign Timur himself, whose real name and surname are not disclosed by the Hur, obviously. And he goes on to say this is described in the book Hur Islands, Secrets, Operations, and War. It also includes his account of this operation. The difficulty was the distance was large from the starting point to the Russian base off the coast, about 200 kilometers. It was the biggest problem, the distance, because even moving by jet ski on the sea is not that complicated. In the Black Sea, such small objects are hard to spot. We had a case when one jet ski broke down and had to be found out by a drone. That turned out to almost be impossible. Jet skis allowed the fighters to quickly and stealthily approach the Crimean coast, and it goes on further from there. But yeah, 200 kilometers, which is 120 something miles on just a normal jet ski, is pretty incredible. So I'm sure they tricked him out with extra fuel tanks and all that. But yeah, conducting a raid by jet ski on the open sea is pretty daring. So that's just one of the stories in the book, and I'm sure there's a lot of others. So maybe we'll finish on that note. Zdenka, what do you think?
Yeah, I think so. It's very daring. It's very brave. It's very crazy, actually. 200 kilometers out across the Black Sea. I did see Will's hand up before. Will, did you want to say something before we close up?
No, it's cool. Jeff covered it pretty well earlier before. Nice work, folks.
Thanks, Will.
Okay. Please consider donating to Ukraine. There are lots and lots of worthy fundraisers. We have some of those in the nest. Especially consider War Doggos, Proactive, and Shotgun fundraisers. So that's givebutter.com/proactive or givebutter.com/shotgun. We'll see you all next week. Thank you very much, Jeff, for helping do the research and reading out all the news today.
Thank you, Zdenka, and we'll say goodbye, and Slava Ukraini.
Heroyam Slava.
Heroyam Slava.
Slava Nasi.
Smrt Voraham.
Mirfaham.
Volya out.
Volya out.
Do Paramohu.